I am live. Welcome to Paulogia Live, where a former Christian takes a look at the claims of Christians live from Paulogia Studios. This is my very first stream that I've done with guests. And for those of you who are familiar with oh man, I need to get rid of that. So those of you familiar with my old channel may remember that I started it as a cartoon and never planned to have guests. Similarly, Paulogia Live, I kind of started it initially and didn't necessarily plan to have guests, but my popping my cherry, as it were, in terms of guests, my very first guest on my animated show was Morgan. So it makes sense that my very first guest on this new channel would also be Morgan. Welcome to the stream.
Howdy. Welcome to real life, non-cartoon Paul.
That's right, and non-cartoon Morgan.
We're here.
We're finally here. Yeah,
Yes.
That's great. And this is kind of your face reveal, I guess.
Yes, if you're not following me on Twitter or Facebook, you have never seen my face outside of the Nike shirt and doodle that Paul has done with me on a few of the Answers News segments that we've done on YouTube.
Well, now I guess according to some, now we're brave. According to some Christians, now we're actually can say things that matter versus what we used to do.
Maybe not for me. Maybe more so for you.
Right.
I don't know what I say now.
Well, let's bring in the rest of our guests for tonight's show. Live from the UK, we have Emma.
Hello.
How are you doing, Emma?
I'm doing pretty good.
We're covering
awake with Coke and gin.
That's right. So it's midnight for Emma, unfortunately, and it's Saturday, so she could give us spoilers about tomorrow if she was a jerk.
Oh my God.
I know the future.
It's the real prophet.
That's right. We also have with us for the first time, I'm working with Dallas Wade. Dallas, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, it's been too long.
It's been way too long.
And you kind of weaseled your way into the Paulogiaverse, though.
I did.
Without even getting invited. You just made your own.
I know. I figured if you weren't going to let me in, I would just do it myself.
So I encourage everyone now. This seems like a time-saving, work-saving effort for me. And of course, the other person, well, one of the many people you were paying homage to in that stream was the lovely Vice Rhino.
Lovely. Ha!
Thank you. Welcome here, Vice.
Glad to be here. Just want to say, Morgan, I do follow you on Twitter. I don't see your face on Twitter. I just see car pictures.
Oh my goodness. The algorithm has changed. My algorithm has changed like every couple months. So now it's going to switch back to like the atheist stuff for the next couple months.
I can relate.
My favorite is when it's chicken wing season. That's me. When that's me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, inflation and the war in Ukraine has unfortunately made that a little less so. But tomorrow I'm going to have a treat for y'all. Chicken wing reveal.
Woo!
Chicken wing reveal.
That's a real thing. Nice. I swear, like that was not planned, but I promise.
So for those of you who have visited my channel, this is a pretty new channel. If you're new here, actually tap subscribe so you can see when I go live, which is sort of a new thing for me. Still figuring all that out. One of the weird things that happened to me, though, about 10 days ago, I was still getting comfortable with this whole live thing, but I got a quick email from Justin Brierley from the Unbelievable Show saying, "Hey, would you like to debate Frank Turek sometime?" And those of you who follow me know that Frank Turek is one of the most infuriating people I've ever that I'm aware of. Is that a good way to put it? And
that's a great way to put it.
I said to Shannon, well, should I do this? And she was like, yes. So I wrote back and it's like, oh, great. It's in 2 days. And here's the book you'll be covering. So that happened. But I quickly, over the course of 2 days, read Frank Turek's new book. And the premiere of my episode of Unbelievable happened just a few hours ago. And so I thought that it would be fun for other people other than me to help me review this conversation. I experienced it live, which was a whole thing. And I've now heard it again. So what I have to say, that doesn't really matter that much. So I thought I'd bring on Star Wars fans to talk about Star Wars. For those of you, some of you have seen some of this. How would you describe the program that we're about to watch?
I haven't watched any of it yet, but if I had to guess from Frank, infuriating would definitely be a word. But yeah, like I'm kind of looking forward to it. Actually, just 1 second, I will be right back. I'm just going
All
to
right.
switch off my camera for a moment.
Okay.
If I had to describe the video in one word, it would of course be Nazis. So that kind of gives everybody a little bit of precedence for what we're about to watch here, because it was infuriating to say the least. But
Right.
as a student of history, it was obviously disconcerting to see the Nazis get brought up as frequently as they were in regard to the objectivity of morality and why the Nazis were incorrect in their
Right.
presumption of morality. So,
Well, we will get to that in excruciating detail eventually.
Yes.
Few notes for those in general. My show, I normally read super chats at the end, but today I'm planning to just interrupt us and read them because why not? And I'm drinking, and I hope that most of my panel will be drinking at least beverages of some sort, and so we can we might forget later. Oh, that's
get
not
spiritual.
part one.
Get spiritual, y'all.
Spiritual. So we will be interrupting to say, "Great to see you all together." The Athai Brady Bunch. Thank you, Philip. Athei? How would you describe? How would you read this? Athei
Yeah.
Brady Bunch. All right.
Yeah.
AI.
Is that that's this layout over here? Well, no, this one,
There we go.
and we can
There
point.
we are. Do our little sitcom poses.
That's right. And not everyone brought a Grogu as per instruction, but that's all right.
I can't.
I do have a lightsaber.
Yay! And actually, so we've also around. So Frank Turek wrote a book with his son, and it's coming out in May. That basically goes through Marvel superheroes, DC superheroes, Harry Potter, Star Wars, a bunch of big franchises like that. And in each chapter, basically relates them. Relates them Sunday school style, basically as if, well, he's giving Bible lessons to take, so that if you have a conversation with someone about Spider-Man, here's how you might spin that into a conversation about the gospel, right? Is essentially what I take away from the book. Oh, I missed the super chat. I would have to read this one out loud. Love the new format from Samuel. Thank you, Samuel. I'm figuring out this whole StreamYard thing. New to me. There it goes.
Vader has arrived.
So
Yeah, not to be too cliche, but I can't see a thing in this helmet.
So it's ostensibly because, for those of you who don't know, I used to work for George Lucas, who, if you don't know who that is, you're probably in the wrong stream.
God help
George
us.
Lucas created Star Wars, and so I have some history here, and this was a weird coming together of my two interests. But I thought I'd gather together some other people who were at least tangentially interested in both apologetics and Star Wars. So before we start on the stream, let's start with Emma. What is your connection to Star Wars? Are you a fan? What's your Star Wars deal?
My Star Wars deal is that I'm one of those people that everybody hates to watch movies and things with, because I just like all of them. I like the prequels. I like the new movies. I like all of the video games. I'm just really easy to please.
How dare you?
Star
How
Wars,
dare you?
I know, which is why I like the second Mandalorian came out. I got myself a Baby Yoda because I'm that kind of person. I just like Star Wars. Yeah, just grew up watching it, and it's good.
Awesome. Dallas, what's your Star Wars journey?
I was born in '95, so I had a few years before the prequels came out. And my dad did introduce me to the original trilogy, so I did watch that before I watched the prequels, although I was very young then. So basically, I grew up with the prequels, and I know they are not objectively the best movies ever, but in my opinion, from nostalgia and just growing up with them, they are some of the best. So I love the prequels. I enjoyed some of the sequel trilogy. I really enjoyed Mandalorian, and I think the Clone Wars is the best Star Wars content. So I like all Star Wars content, the video games. I read some of the books. So yeah,
Cool.
big Star Wars fan.
Morgan.
I am the fake Star Wars fan. I like it. I love the prequels. I'm a Hayden Christensen stan. I think Phantom Menace is the best movie of all time. And I've played Star Wars Galaxies, and I really, really, really like the Force Awakens video games. I love the character of the Apprentice, and I guess I am always willing to learn more about Star Wars because it's so complex, the expanded universe, and all the different characters, the way the Sith and Jedi work. But I can't say that like I know everything front to back. Haven't seen the Mandalorian, haven't seen the Boba Fett stuff. So, yeah, I know. Put me up on the cross and crucify me. You know, I'll save myself from my own sins at this point. But that's my Star Wars story. So,
All right, and Weist.
My Star Wars story is that Star Wars literally brings tears to my eyes because the foam on the inside of this helmet is disintegrating after years, and it really hurts. But no, I grew up with Star Wars. I've always loved it. I've loved the originals, and I guess I have a bit of a contrarian view on Star Wars as well, because as much as I understand that a lot of the changes made to the special edition of the original trilogy are absolutely terrible and they didn't really add anything, I love that he made the changes because that allowed me to have the experience of seeing the original Star Wars trilogy in theaters on the big screen as a kid. And that was a magical moment for me. So it's like, who cares that CGI Jabba looked bad? I got to see Star Wars on the big screen. And I kind of approach them as like, I know that the Star Wars movies are not like amazing cinema, but they are fun. They are a lot of fun. I enjoy them. It doesn't need to be amazing cinema. It just needs to be fun. As far as I understand, that's what George was trying to do with it anyway. So,
It is.
So mission accomplished, I guess.
Godless Granny writes, "Seeing A New Hope in the theater was my first date." Well, thank you,
Nice.
because
Aw.
these four have made me feel so old in the last 2 minutes that I really needed this. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I worked on that game you liked, and oh yeah, that movie that you went to helped pay for my
I
house,
made
so that was
universe.
cool.
Like George Lucas is just part of it.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I was young enough that I loved Jar Jar Binks when Episode 1 came out.
Yeah.
I had the shirt with him sticking his tongue out on it.
I was Jar Jar Binks for Halloween.
Whoa, in what year?
It was either 99 or 2000.
Wow. So
Oh,
that's brave.
When Force Awakens came out, all three of my kids were, one was Poe Dameron, one was Rey, and one was BB-8, and
Aw.
they were all homemade costumes, and those are probably the best Halloween costumes we've ever made. Like we spray painted a jacket orange for the X-wing fighter. We like modified a baseball helmet and put like an orange safety glasses thing in it. The BB-8 was like we paper mache'd around one of those exercise balls and then cut a hole out for his head. It was amazing. Those are the best Halloween costumes my kids have ever had.
Nice.
The first time I went for Star Wars Halloween, there were no officially licensed costumes at all. That's how old I am. And my mom had to dye one of our blankets in our house brown so that she could make me a Jawa costume. And so
Nice.
thank you, Mom. I appreciate that. Even though my Mennonite grandparents were parents were very upset with this whole idea, which we'll get to if we ever watch the Frank video. Andrea says Star Trek is the best Star Wars film. That was JJ's audition for Star Wars, for sure.
Actually, there was a comic, I think it was Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal today, just said that as a marketing tip, you can sell any movie as a Star Trek prequel just by adding the line like several hundred years before the first Starship Enterprise.
That's right. Yeah, like Brokeback Mountain is a Star Trek prequel, I guess, technically.
Yeah, no, well, the alt text for that one was Citizen Kane is my favorite Star Trek prequel.
That's right. Just love it. Toy Ranch, have you read any of The Force of Star Wars by Almut, 1977? Yes. Yes, I did. Mix of Star Wars and the Bible, and we will actually get to that if we ever get to this Frank video. It did. There was two types of Star Wars books in the late 70s when it comes to Christianity. There's ones that took it like Frank does and said, oh yeah, this is a Christian allegory-ish, and let's use it to talk about God. And then there was the ones that like literally say, no, this is New Age woo that is like stealing our children's souls because it's New Age and Eastern. So this was one of the ones that attempted to make it look right. And I actually took this book to my mom and said, look, Star Wars is okay, Mom. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that book. Toy Ranch. And doing this in the middle is weird. Zachary writes, "Hello, love your guys' work. What are your favorite lightsaber colors?" All right, Emma.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a sucker for a classic green. I think green is my favorite color anyway. That's a bit boring.
That's not. There's initially there was only 3 colors, so
Yeah.
so it's not like you can come up with. Now you can say anything you want, but Morgan, I know yours is red.
Purple, man.
Purple, really? I thought you'd be the Darth Maul. Come on.
Oh, well, of course. Like, outside of that, it's always going to just be Darth Maul. That's going to be my answer, but purple. If I had to choose.
All right.
A purple Darth Maul saber.
Right.
Ooh.
That's cool.
Dallas, what's your favorite color? Like
Definitely green. I like green lightsabers.
I am also team green. I know the reason they made it green was because the blue wasn't working with the blue sky on Tatooine.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, just like the vibrance that was with the green lightsaber when it first shows up. Like, I mean, I guess what you compare it to what showed up in A New Hope, the lightsaber effect wasn't perfected at that point. But like, I don't know, I really liked the green one, and you know, the new ones were kind of neat, but they felt kind of gratuitous almost.
Green was when Luke became a badass. So
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
So that was pretty cool. Up until then, all we'd seen was like robot men, cybermen, and an old dude. Really. So yeah.
Yellow, but I'm dumb. Whose lightsaber is yellow?
Oh, I think those are like the trainee ones in the video games.
That was Stu Griffin in chat.
Yeah, and so there haven't been any official yellow ones in the movies, I don't think, but the video games.
Thorne had a yellow one, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that video
Bible
of
Man.
I forget what Bible Man had a yellow one. I forget what channel it was, but there was a channel that like redid the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to be more
I've
in the
seen
style
that.
of the
That is
prequels.
amazing.
It was so well done. I loved it.
Yeah. Mrs. Parker sent me a praise the soup. Thank you so much, Mrs. Parker. Welcome here. I'm on her channel a lot, so welcome here. Artemis, if I loved you anymore, there'd be a warrant for my arrest out of Tennessee. Ooh.
Low
And
bar.
Artemis, yes, I would. Anyway, Artemis was also, an original Paulogia type supporter, and he's been around for a long time. Appreciate it.
I know
man.
Artemis.
Yeah.
Artemis hangs out on my channel sometimes too.
Good dude. Nathan writes they need a Spaceballs game called The Schwartz Awakens. Yes, they do. They do need to do that. That is a missed opportunity in marketing. All right. Oh, man, we got so many. Robert writes, I was at the opening of Star Wars May 25th, 1977. I bet you weren't, but we'll keep going. Investigating a specific cactus, and nothing in the Star Wars universe has ever quite matched that experience. So I don't have time to rant about this stuff. So when it opened in May 25th, 1977, it only opened in 13 theaters. So the chance of most people, when they say they were there on opening day, they weren't. It actually didn't even open in Canada until July. So yeah, but if you were, awesome, because you're one of very rare company that way. Emma and I could be fast friends. I enjoyed every single Star Wars product ever, including the holiday special. Wow. Emma, have you seen the holiday special?
I have, and I enjoy it because of how bad it is.
Yes.
So I still
Yes.
enjoy it. Yeah.
That's how I watch it as well. I love bad movies.
Yeah.
So I'm able to enjoy that from that angle.
It's a good bad movie. It's not one of those movies that's just objectively bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Grandpa Wookie goes and watches some porn in the middle of
Yeah.
it. Like, what?
Yeah, that
In the middle of the living room.
that made me uncomfortable.
What's up, guys? And thanks for your hard work. Thank you, Paul. Good first name as well.
There's
Excellent.
about to be a lot of Pauls in chat here.
Yeah. I've always considered Lego Star Wars to be my favorite episode. Yes, old man
Lego
Joe, and
Star
especially
Wars.
before, when the characters couldn't talk. Those were the best Lego
Yes.
Star Wars because they had to be very creative.
Yes. So much funnier. So much funnier and better before
The-
they could talk.
The Phineas and Ferb Star Wars is great too.
Mm.
And I love that in the opening crawl. They're just like, and yeah, relax. This isn't canon. Don't get your panties in a bunch about it.
I do think Lego Star Wars was some of the best Star Wars stuff. I've probably spent more time in Lego Star Wars than I have watching like the actual live action movies. Because like me and my brother, we would replay it over and over and over again. Like it's just some of my favorite memories with Star Wars, honestly.
And that is actually how the game was partially designed, was to,
Yeah.
in order to win, you kind of had to play it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, because then you can do the free play, and you
Yeah.
can play as any character in any episode, and that's just great.
Yeah, it was the perfect game for a completionist kid. So great.
Be careful around the Artemis guy. I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust anyone from Indiana. Yeah, well, okay. Who's your buddy? How about just the States? No one from America. And this is the last one before we move on to the actual show. No lie, I saw Star Wars: A New Hope July '77 in Calgary. Yeah, that's when it opened. And I wasn't in Calgary. I was in Saskatoon, in a theater that no longer exists.
Cool.
Oh, and last one, and it's from McKinnon. If anyone
Someone
has
sent
not-
another one, so he has to say last one again.
Right. Yeah. It's just gonna be
So, but
not gonna get
2
into
hours.
McKinnon, for those of you who are Kent Hovind fans, I know Emma is a big fan of Kent Hovind. So
I love
have
him.
you seen did you see
I love
McKinnon's,
McKinnon's
documentary?
documentary. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's very good.
The Cowardice of Kent Hovind, and I believe
The
the
weakness.
massive opus is coming out in a few weeks here. I used to love Star Wars, but personally I've become too oversaturated with it. But we have The Mandalorian now, and at this point, that's all we need. This is the way. Man, I just think that we just need to have a panel just about Star Wars and forget this whole Frank Turek thing, because the way religion is portrayed in both The Mandalorian
Yes.
and in Boba Fett, and then the way I'm anticipating that it's going to be portrayed in the Obi-Wan series, basically where Obi-Wan's entire religion failed, and he's the last adherent. Like that, I'm guessing that's going to be fascinating, but that is not what we're going to do today, because Frank will be sad if we all gather and don't talk about him.
right.
Well, to me, that seems like an argument against playing the video.
Oh, that's true.
It's just a
That's
bait
true.
and switch. We pretend we're going to talk about him, and
Well,
then
then-
it never happens.
If we're mean about Frank, then all will go right with the universe again, I guess. All right. So, anyone from the panel is allowed to say pause. Anyone from the panel is allowed to say, "Let's skip this part," and let's see what happens. They start with an interesting bumper where it's like the best parts, which is kind of cool. But we'll go for it. And in the chat, let me know if you can hear this audibly and if the levels are good.
And this is why people love movies, because they know that we live in a world that just isn't right, that there's something wrong with this world, and we all long for someone to come and take us from this world into the so-called promised land.
Han Solo came to that because he saw evidence. Han Solo didn't have to be, he didn't believe because of the stories that he was told. He didn't believe because of eyewitness accounts or legends. It was when he had sufficient evidence shown to him.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of the show. Here on YouTube, you can like today's video.
All right, I'm going to skip over Justin's intro just because, if we've heard of his show before.
People named Justin are the worst.
That's right. That's what I always say. My bad, you were right. It opened in Milwaukee in 6/22/77. I got the rest of the chat right, though. This is perfect. So if everyone can spend a little bit of money to tell me something, and then I'll tell you why that's wrong, and then you can...
That's the show.
That's the show. And then you spend some money to say, yeah, you're right. And if it actually goes back and forth, all the better. All right. Hollywood heroes.
To Harry Potter, to Star Wars and more, reveal God. He argues that all of these fictional stories of good versus evil, promised savior, sacrifice and redemption actually point to the true story of Jesus, the ultimate hero. In conversation with Frank is ex-Christian Paul Enns, who runs a counter-apologetics YouTube channel called Paulogia. He's been on the show before. Paul's been a long-time
I always mispronounce my name. It's apparently Paulogia.
You don't know what it is.
I was going to comment on that, but then I'm like, maybe it's just the accent.
Yeah. Everybody pronounces Paulogia differently. Paulogia.
Paulogia.
Paulogia. Yeah.
Paulogia.
Paulogia. Yeah.
Emma, you don't get that, do you? You
Am
get
I not? I don't think
mispronunciations.
I don't think I have the right.
No, you don't get
Insane.
mispronunciations, is what I meant. You don't get. Everyone just pronounces your name correctly all the time.
I've had some people reference me as Bella Thorne. I don't know if that counts
Oh.
as. It's not
I think
mispronunciation.
that's more meant
it's,
to be snide as opposed to. Yeah.
Paul and Morgan did that to me on a video. They linked my stuff as Bella Thorne.
Oh, you got Paul and Morgan's attention?
Yeah,
Nice.
I did.
Well, eventually we're going to get to this Turek guy.
Yeah. If Jesus didn't exist, then he couldn't have been invented, Frank. That is something that he is going to say during this stream, if we ever get there. All right, I'm going to shut up now.
Comic and movie fan, and even worked behind the scenes in 1999 for Lucasfilm on the Star Wars prequel trilogy. So this is a unique opportunity, really, for him to combine his two interests of debating apologetics and talking about movie and comic book heroes and that kind of thing. So
That means we can all blame Paul for Jar Jar.
Rather unusual conversation. We've never done one quite like this on Unbelievable. So welcome, Frank and Paul, to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Justin.
I feel a little bit like the like Bruce Banner in the Avengers Endgame. Just before he snapped to bring everyone back, he said, "It's like I was made for this." And it's like, whoa, we need Star Wars and counter-apologetics? Wow.
I got to say, I feel like you've really gone to town with the Star Wars look as well today,
this is my,
Paul.
yeah, my normal aesthetic, but I'm very Star Wars inspired for sure.
What does that mean? I want to.
What does what mean?
It's just like you're looking very like Star Wars.
Because
like,
green,
like, what,
I guess.
a black shirt.
Black, yeah.
It's green and black, yeah. There's
you
a
have-
Grogu
you have-
in the background.
Blonde hair like Luke?
Right.
So I get that a lot. So
Let's
I get
deconstruct
like,
it.
what I get is you look like young old Luke, which I'm not sure how to
Between
take.
6 and 7.
It's like, well, we don't want to insult you and say you look like old Luke, but you look like old Luke like 6 months earlier or something. Yeah.
That's not bad though.
Middle-aged Luke.
Middle-aged Luke.
Apparently, that's not a thing though, right? It's just got to be young old. Like
That's right. Yeah, but I'm still.
You look like if Luke was your age instead of the age he was or the age he is.
I'm gonna take that. I'll take that.
Exactly, and I see a Yoda, or is it a baby Yoda?
I was worried that I wanted to use that Avengers line to start with because I was worried that I wasn't going to come off, with enough geek cred to talk about this book. And then it turns out Frank hasn't seen like half these movies.
I was.
Well, I mean,
Paul,
he says
jumped in with the nerd shit. Like,
so. I've taken a peek at the book. I haven't read the whole thing, but I read the first. I read the introduction. He legitimately says right in it is like, I don't recommend you watch all of these movies. Some of them are inappropriate. So,
true. Jar Jar is in some of them. I agree.
Grogu back there somewhere. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that was my first thought when I saw the list of movies that he was comparing to Christianity or whatever. Is just like, aren't like half of those banned in a lot of Christian households, if
hope
not
they
more?
Just the opening scene of episode 6 from where I came from. Star
Really?
Wars was cool. Harry Potter wasn't, but still the opening scene of episode 6 was not okay.
It's a
Because of Leia in the bikini?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, they definitely caused a lot of boys to stumble for sure, and girls probably.
Yeah, great. Well, we're going to talk about Star Wars, and we'll come to all that in just a moment. Maybe we'll start though with the book, Frank. Tell us about this. What's the big idea behind this new book, Hollywood Heroes? And tell us.
All right, what's your take on Jar Jar's Sith Lord theory? Anyone?
Darth Jar Jar? I like it, but I don't think it really holds up.
Yeah, it's fun to think about. It's fun and hilarious.
I think it makes sense, but Paul probably has the answer. I mean, you were there, right? Did you and George talk about this?
So, anyone else want to weigh in before I?
It's true. It's pure agony. It's all the Sith are.
So, one thing about George Lucas is that he's a very stubborn man, and as the more hate the Jar Jar got, originally Jar Jar was only supposed to be in episode 1, but then as the people got angrier and angrier, he's like, I'll show them. I'm going to put him in it. I'm going to put him in the next one. And then he just thought it would be delicious to have Jar Jar just be the destruction of democracy. Like, that just tickled George so much. The idea that people would hate that. He really had contempt for his fans in his own way, which is you got to admire.
I actually relate to that because there are times like I get comments on my channel that like I can tell they're well-meaning, but my initial gut reaction is I want to do the opposite of what that person is telling me to do, because like that's just how I am. I also I feel like I'm being Mike Wazowski down here.
Can I?
Hi.
Eric, it's just when the super chats are on, right?
I know. It's okay. I'm just,
all right.
I just noticed and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
So so if you're tired of seeing Vice's face,
send a super chat.
send in a super chat.
Udhef Hugh Keel. I am drinking Old Style, which is a wonderful Midwestern beer that I am addicted to at this point.
Yay! And so sponsor the channel. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I love it.
I'm drinking water because we're on quarantine and there's no alcohol in the house, so I can't go out and get it.
Oh no!
Rest in peace, Rhino. I got you.
It's a bit about your own interest and love, along with your son, of the movies and Star Wars and so on.
Yeah, well, my son, Zach, he's my eldest son. He's 34 years old now. He's actually serving in the military, so he's an intelligence officer, so he's really consumed with the Russia-Ukraine thing right now. Wow. But he's always been the big movie buff. And 4 or 5 years ago, we were just having a discussion, and he was talking about superhero movies. He grew up on Star Wars. He's probably read most of the Star Wars books that are in the alternate universe, that most people don't know about. He read all those. He read, of course, the whole Harry Potter series, so many other books. And
by alternate universe, I think he means Legends.
Yeah.
Or the EU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the expanded.
Well, the expanded universe got reset when Disney bought them.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that kind of annoyed me because I really liked the Han Solo trilogy and the Solo movie. Like there were lots of nods to the trilogy in the movie that I enjoyed, but the rest of it was just like, why are you doing that? You had a good story already.
So one thing that I did when I worked there was I actually pitched a EU reset back in 2004, I want to say, or maybe 5.
Yeah, it's impossible to keep track of all that crap.
Millions of years ago.
But then this was like long before. This is just shortly before the Clone Wars TV series came out, and we were trying to figure out all this stuff for the Clone Wars
2008.
TV show. Well, we started pre-production on that earlier. Anyway, so, but that just very much got shot down. So I actually thought it was delicious when Disney did it, but I think it happens in the comics. It happens a lot of places where essentially, if you don't reset canon every once in a while, people don't feel like they have a good jumping in point. And what I've enjoyed what they've done with Mandalorian and all these other series is they've brought some things in so they can rescue things if you want to make them canon, but you're just not beholden to a 6-foot rabbit who, also flies the Millennium Falcon, right? Which is something that happened in the 70s. So, yeah, anyway, I enjoyed that. Did we get this super chat? For evolving the Vice Rhino into Vice Mike. There we go. Perfect.
I'm watching you, Wazowski.
That was so great.
We love you, Rhino. Says Zach. Yay.
We do. We love you, Rhino.
And
even though he's hidden by the super chats that mentioned him.
All I need in this life is a Thrawn series, says Andy. Well, I think
there is.
I think you're going to get... No, but I think...
Yeah, it's in the works. It's in the works.
Well, but I think he's definitely going to be in the Ahsoka series, right? Like, for those who are watching?
Yeah, I would think
so. I mean, they mentioned... Yeah. Ahsoka mentioned him, so that would be weird with her spin-off series for him not to be...
Yeah, that was definitely an intentional little hint, right?
Yeah. So, live-action Thrawn, yay. Except they don't have what they used... What Thrawn originally had was those creatures, the Yelsomari or something like that negated the Force. And again, that was one of those things that, I'm glad we didn't bring that along because it was just way overpowered, right? If not only is he like the smartest person ever, but also the Force can't affect him. So one of those things that I'm happy they left behind. And we'll get to some Mary Sue stuff if we ever get that far in the video, which maybe we won't. Everyone who's watching, I don't know how far we're going to get. We'll see.
Spoilers, God's the Mary Sue.
I know.
Of course, the movies. And he just saw so many parallels.
Should I skip these intros, or is this necessary to hear?
What do we think, chat?
Parallels to the Christian story. So we just got together and I said, hey, Zach, maybe we ought to write a book about this. And so this is how it all came together. And you summed it up perfectly, Justin, at the top, that many of the heroes that we see in these superhero and fantasy movies are heroes that ultimately point to the ultimate hero.
All right, I'm getting some skips, so we'll skip.
Skippity doo dah, skippity.
No one's ever heard Frank.
I've saw the video, so you're not missing anything from this
Okay,
first
but,
like, 5-ish
but-
minutes.
Yeah, it's mainly him describing the book, which
Mhm.
I think I kind of adequately described.
People may not realize you're also a huge sort of Star Wars enthusiast, a real movie and comic buff. Tell us a little bit about that background to yourself.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd, but when I was a kid, I saw Star Wars for the first time, and it changed my life. As this little Mennonite kid walked into a movie theater and got to see something so huge, it definitely impacted all my interests. I got involved in movie making, got involved with visual effects, with animation, with storytelling, with computer science, all those kind of things, because I just really aspired to see what was on film. Star Wars inspired me so much. And so as my career went on, I actually, as you mentioned before, I ended up getting recruited by George Lucas to go work at Skywalker Ranch on the prequel trilogy. So I was involved with all the online and behind the scenes activities for episodes 1, 2, and 3. And after that, I started a comic book publishing company because I was just so passionate about graphic novels and publishing. So some of you who know my background know that actually fed into my deconversion story. But then after that, I even started a YouTube channel that no one knows about, but it actually I have more views on my Suicide Squad and Justice League videos than I actually do on any of my counter-apologetic stuff. So we have a super chat from Philip. Says, so we're agreed next time we just chat Star Wars and skip Frank. Well, we could even do that tonight. That's also...
Skinwalker Ranch, no thank you, is great.
Do you have a secret YouTube channel, Paul? Or is this out there?
So it's a YouTube channel called Panel to Frame. It used to be called Fractal, now it's called Panel to Frame. And it was my first YouTube channel that my friend Dave started with me while I was in the midst of being most sick. And if that channel didn't exist, Paulogia wouldn't exist. And I think if you went and found it, you would see I was experimenting with the animations and the avatars and all that kind of stuff over there.
Okay.
So I just did a quick search for it because I was curious, and I might have used the wrong two. But when I search for Panel to Frame, the first thing that comes up is a video on a channel called Stumpy Nubs, and I thought that was funny. It's called Is the Frame and Raised Panel Obsolete? I don't know, but it's Stumpy Nubs.
So that channel, I used to make videos that would explain, like, so when the Suicide Squad came out, like there'd be a video for who is Slipknot and who is Boomerang. Okay. Like, so it was basically explaining all the characters before they showed up on screen, what they had done in the comics up to that point. But one of my favorite videos on that is actually me watching the Star Wars Holiday Special for describing the Star Wars Holiday Special so that no one else has to watch it. But it ended up taking 44 minutes, which is like almost as long as it actually is. But so I did have a secret YouTube channel. And weirdly, that channel, there's individual videos that have way more views than anything I do on Paulogia, because apparently people really want to know who Baron Mordo is from the various movies.
Well, that's cool. That's really cool. I didn't know that before this. So,
did any of you?
Apparently Stumpy Nubs is great.
Yeah, Stumpy Nubs.
Everybody is a fan of Stumpy Nubs.
I think R. Damascus just wanted to block Weist for a moment, so that works.
I turned into a sneaky chipmunk or whatever that is.
Like, enough of that.
And Anton, my favorite Star Wars video game. Is that a question? Oh, if that's a question, jump through the panel.
N64 Rogue Squadron.
Ooh,
the second Force Awakens.
Cool. Emma?
Probably Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. I'm like weirdly emotionally attached to it because of the emotional twists.
For me, it would either be Jedi Knight 2 or Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, the real-time strategy game.
And I love Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 let you do a lot of very cool things for the first time. So
Battlefront 2 was pretty fun as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rogue Squadron, is my favorite. Probably the worst part about it, though, is that it doesn't emulate well. And finding, like, I have a Nintendo 64, but, like, finding it is not easy.
Oh, yeah.
No one says KOTOR. I'm sorry, Sean, my friend Sean in the chat. But these are the real Star Wars people.
If my son was here, either of my sons were
yeah.
here, they would say
There's got to
KOTOR.
be somebody KOTOR, like.
That's right. Someone tell Frank what happens in Star Wars to the guy that's a chosen one born from a virgin. Yes. Yes. He doesn't. He avoids that in the book. The prophecy of, and it'd be fun if, like, what if all the prophecies about So one of the George's takes was that the prophecies were true, but were being entirely misunderstood. He thought that was hilarious. And what if some of the Bible prophecies were, like, wrong? Right? They were true, but
weird.
Yeah.
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view.
Does it ever actually address that? And like, I can't think of any line that explicitly mentions, like, the way Vader brings balance to the Force is by making sure there are two Sith, because they always come in twos.
The closest thing is at the end of Episode 3 when Obi-Wan says, you were meant to bring balance to the Force, not destroy it, or I forget the exact line now, which
leave it in darkness.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he kind of did, because it went from being all Jedi, no Sith, to now there's like two Jedi and two Sith.
Exactly, right?
So it's balanced.
It's one of those, Star Wars rhymes.
That's always been one of my little headcanon things, but I don't know if that's ever been officially confirmed.
No, but I wonder, the new Obi-Wan series starting May 27th. Potentially.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I like, Ewan McGregor is by far the best part of the prequel trilogies. He's amazing, and he was clearly having a lot of fun with the role, and like he's just a great actor.
Which Battlefront 2, Pandemic or Pink Vader? The Pandemic. I don't know what Pink Vader refers to.
I don't understand the question.
Okay. I don't either.
Well, there are two Battlefront 2s.
Yeah, the old 2001-ish one.
Well, I probably got the redone one because I got it with the PlayStation.
Oh yeah, this would have been Xbox
PS4.
360. I think that was it was very exciting.
No, this was like PS2.
Yeah.
PS2 one that we.
Okay, so I got it with the PS4. I've never played the older one.
Yeah.
Vice Rhino, I'm on the cover of
I thought about saying that. I was just gonna be like, I'm on Paulogia.
Paulogia.
All right, let's see if we get to some places where we had enough about me. Oh, I wanted to look at these cakes. Oh, I think I passed them too fast. There's some very scary cakes.
Wait,
It's a
what?
flash of green. What was that?
Cakes?
Cakes.
What?
Now I see. Now I've ruined it all.
Apparently.
All right. Well, we'll have to skip the cakes.
Oh,
Because I don't know. All right. Well, someone let me know in the chat. What timestamp the cakes are, because they flash by too quick. And we'll see where we are.
Lewis, as you well know, Justin, that Christianity was the true myth.
I brought cake.
Lewis, when he was an atheist, was always enchanted by dying gods and people that have sacrificed themselves to save others. And Tolkien said, well, Christianity is just the true myth. All those other ones didn't really happen, but Christianity really did happen. And it prepared his heart it prepared Lewis's heart to be open to the true myth. And then, of course, Lewis made a career out of pointing out why Christianity was true, evidentially.
He didn't do a very good job of it,
evidentiary
though.
way.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because in a way,
My family used to think that just one more copy of Mere Christianity on my bookshelves would do it.
I've been meaning to, I know I have Mere Christianity. I know I loved it when I was a Christian, and I want to read it again as an atheist. It's somewhere in the house, but I haven't found it yet. So I kind of want to do like a book review series on it.
That'd be a good series.
I need to reread it. I know I read it in high school, but I was like,
I have to go put my cake back in the freezer.
Oh,
I'm going to dip out real quick, too.
Morgan's putting cake back in the freezer? Okay. All right.
I wish I had cake. I'm tired of Lewis and Tolkien I don't know. I'm tired of it in apologetics. It's exhausting. I don't like Lewis.
Well,
Just
he's not as
exhausted
brilliant
by the
as-
conversation.
Yes, and he'll come up actually in this conversation if we ever get there. Maybe we will.
Way, even some of these newer stories kind of still hark back to some of those old sort of fables and stories of the Norse legends and everything. You've got Thor turning up in a kind of 21st century context in the Avengers and everything. But we'll talk more about that definitely during the show. This whole idea of, is Jesus the true myth, the story that all other stories point towards, and that kind of thing. Obviously.
Thank you, David.
Paul, tell us about your own background. Many people will know you for your kind of counter-apologetics work.
So we can skip this because I was just so passionate about graphic novels and publishing.
Old son Jeremy will be fascinated because he during lockdown he really got into Star Wars. He has become a huge Star Wars nerd in the last 2 years. Basically.
Well, you two have.
So there's something generational about this, isn't there? It gets passed on.
You two have Wikipedia pages, but I have a Wikipedia page, so you can check me out there.
Wow,
I saw that. Yeah.
Come on. In fact,
when I worked in a call center, there was a place that we were making outgoing calls, and quite frequently there was a lot of downtime in between calls, and they had unrestricted internet access at this place. And one of the things I did out of boredom in between calls was I would just read Wikipedia pages.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of random Star Wars trivia that I know where I haven't read the book that it's from, but I've read the Wikipedia page.
That's what I used to do as a kid. I didn't get any of the Star Wars novels, but I would spend hours just reading through Wikipedia.
Morgan gets Wazowski'd this time.
I was going to say now Morgan. Now the new
bottom of the totem pole.
I guess I'm stupid. I thought Vader rebalanced by killing the Emperor in Episode 6 when the dark side was too strong. That's if you want to, be boring and then read everything at face value. But if you want to,
Please, Paul.
come on.
I was going to say I always thought that too, but now
Well, no, that
it's boring and stupid.
that does kind of work, but then that does, it's like either explanation could work, and neither of them really work with each other.
Yeah, it's funny how prophecies are just up for interpretation.
Yeah.
Of course, the other problem with that is that Disney completely, if Vader's redemption arc is that redemption arc, they just stomped all over it because the Emperor didn't die. In Episode 9, it's just like, oh no, now the Emperor's back somehow.
I have very mixed feelings about that. Like, it was great seeing Ian McDermott. It was great seeing him again, but I just felt like it didn't need to happen.
Well, it did because they didn't have a proper plan, in my opinion. But that's for another day.
Yeah.
Well, everybody blames it as being a fight between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, and I think there is a bit of truth to that. But on the flip side of that, J.J. Abrams was a producer on the one that Rian Johnson directed. So he could have said, no, you have to follow the plan, but there wasn't a plan.
Well, so he was an executive producer, and executive producers notoriously don't really have much involvement or power. They are usually lending. They're usually an executive producer is doing something to make it get to the first day of shooting. Whereas the producer handles all the rest of the stuff. Like, for example, like Steven Spielberg is sometimes an exec producer on things just because they made a phone call or set up a meeting, right? Like it's one of those weird type things. So I don't want to go into too much of that politics, but JJ, I don't know how much power he would have had on Episode 8, to be honest.
I like Matt's comment here in the chat.
What would Matt say?
He says that smile will give me nightmares now.
I definitely agree with Richard Taylor in that I'm going Broom Kid is the real chosen one. That's my
Yes.
That's
Broom
my
Kid.
Yeah.
That is a theory. Yeah, for sure.
Why does Turek look so evil in this pause? Because it's Frank Turek.
Yeah.
Any pause of him looks kind of like this. I've done enough response videos with typing my script with him paused in positions like this that I like. There's no such thing as a non-evil Frank pause. I've also thought okay, this is completely superficial and it doesn't matter whatsoever. But I think his glasses look like they're like protective eyewear rather than like eyeglasses.
Kind of do.
They do.
I don't know how he goes to a theater and watches a 3D movie with those on.
I actually have a pair of 3D glasses that I bought 2 pairs, and then I swapped one of the lenses out from each one. So I call them the D3D glasses because I hate 3D movies. But if that's the only way that I can go see the movie,
Right.
I have these glasses that are just going to make it like a normal movie now.
Rhino living in the year 9000. Just stunting all of us right now.
Show this on screen for those watching on video, but the last 2 birthday parties we had Star Wars themed cakes, and
go.
I helped to create the first
Oh,
one.
no.
Which is,
Nice.
All right, so this is a cake.
What? are those both Obi-Wan from Phantom Menace?
So I want yes, you're right. You are
That's
right.
a Qui-Gon lightsaber.
So when it's gonna come up, and I'm gonna look like I'm
This is
stupid because when we recorded the show 10 days ago or whatever it was, I couldn't see the pictures. These pictures weren't on. So he was like, he's gonna come up and say, "Well, who fights on Mustafar?" So I'll say, like, "Yeah, Anakin and Obi-Wan. That's who fights on Mustafar." But this is young Anakin. This is young Obi-Wan versus old Obi-Wan for some reason. And I was imagining a grander cake. Sorry, Justin, if you're watching this, I love you, but yeah, this cake is not. Maybe the Is It Cake show on Netflix isn't for you.
You know what? I would be happy if I made that cake for my kids.
The lava's fun. It's just
The lava's good.
the figurines are a little strange.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna give you nightmares for in 1 second here.
based on the battle on Mustafar between Anakin and who is it? He's battling.
It's Anakin and
Mustafar.
Obi-Wan. Mustafar, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Anakin and Obi-Wan. And the second is a marshmallow Jabba the Hutt.
Oh God!
That's awesome. I want
God.
See that?
I respect it.
Yeah.
That's-
So but I'm just imagining some kid's birthday party. They opened it. Like, why is Jabba dying?
Or like,
It's
where's my
missing- if it
Leia,
had-
too? Like,
If there's a little Barbie in a bikini by it, it would be perfect. Everyone would know.
You know, I love it. I know it's terrible, but I love it. I love that.
Yeah,
That's just it's amazing.
it's
I'm
is
having that for
amazing.
my birthday.
And are those M&Ms for the eyes? Maybe.
It looks like it, yeah.
No.
M&Ms or Skittles or something.
Yeah. And then you had some dark for the nostrils. You had to paint that in, so maybe the eyes. All right. Anton asks thoughts on Disney destroying extended universe. We kind of covered that a little bit. I was even though I had written work that was in stuff that I wrote was canon and is now no longer, but I still am in support of it just because there was just too much material for someone new to jump in, and I think episode 7 was a perfect place to reset it. And they can bring in, like, they don't have to ignore things. They can bring whatever they want in and be canon now. So that's my thoughts. Anyone else?
I understand why they did it, even if I don't necessarily like it.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but I think my biggest issue was Kyle Katarn kind of getting retconned a little bit with Rogue One.
Right.
But other than that, it makes sense.
There is also a video on that secret channel that I have of
Okay.
seven times the Death Star plans were stolen. Is because it happened even in canon. It was a big mess that the Death Star plans just kept getting stolen by different people.
Actually, since Rogue One was brought up, I just want to ask everybody here, because I was under the impression when it came out that pretty much nobody liked it except for me. I was feeling very alone in that. Like, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was the best of the new Star Wars so far. And I seem to recall everybody was complaining that, oh, it's so slow moving, it's so dull, it's so, and they're like, oh, they're like, everybody was complaining about it. But now everybody online is like, oh yeah, this is the best Star Wars movie by, like, some people are saying it's not just the best of new Star Wars, they're saying it's the best Star Wars. And I'm just like, when did the change happen? Or was I just seeing like a minority of people that hated it for some reason right after I saw it?
don't know. I enjoyed it. I know I watched it either opening night or opening weekend, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was better than The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I specifically intentionally avoid Star Wars criticism and conversation online because it's scary and aggressive. So I probably wouldn't have seen if people had hated it anyway.
Wait, as far as it being slow, like that was one of the biggest complaints, was that it's slow. And I actually liked that it was slow because they kind of broke how hyperspace works in the new trilogy, and they brought back the way it worked in the original trilogy for Rogue One. They had conversation time in the ship while they're traveling. So I kind of liked that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Who's your buddy? And Hoosier, I did catch why your name is Hoosier, because Hoosiers is one of my favorite movies of all time, the basketball movie. It's a great movie. Now that Disney owns Fox Animation, how do you think that Family Guy Star Wars fits in? Anyone?
It's canon, right?
It's canon.
Like that was in the announcement for their when they sliced the EU. Star Wars is now canon, right?
I didn't think like all Fox products were like a cinematic universe, or I don't know.
So wait, does that mean that it's canon that John Williams got murdered on Tatooine?
Yes.
Because that was one of the gags, was that like when the orchestra's playing at the double sunset, like the music swells and everything, and then John Williams gets killed and they replace him with Danny Elfman.
I was just thinking back to your Star Trek theory there, Weist. So if every movie before the time of Star Trek is a Star Trek prequel, and if Star Wars happens a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, is like The Godfather a sequel of sorts? It's a Star Wars.
Absolutely. Star Wars is the ultimate Star Trek prequel.
All right,
there actually is a fan theory, something about that. No, it goes the other way around. The fan theory is that Star Trek is a Star Wars prequel, and then in the Star Wars era, they've all forgotten how the technology really works, so that's why it's all beaten up and run down. But that doesn't really work with the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
I think we've traumatized everyone enough with this.
I love it. That's my favorite thing ever now.
So I hope people enjoy the sight of those as they come up on the video. When did you first bump into Star Wars, Frank? I guess you were the first generation of Star Wars fan, were you?
Yeah, I was 15 years old when the first Star Wars movie came out, and I remember going to the theater and people were dressed up in costume.
So my new fan theory is that Frank Turek, at 15, went on a date with Godless Granny.
Oh my god!
Is it canon? Let us know in the chat.
I was going to make a crack about him accidentally going to see Rocky Horror, and those are the costumes that he was thinking of.
They're so good.
I don't know. Did Rocky Horror come out?
I think 79.
75.
75. I was too little to know.
The first, as Paul well knows, the first Star Wars movie actually made 70 times its production budget.
Wow.
And much of that was on the backs of people that kept going back to the same movie. So it was a cultural phenomenon.
We all went back to the same movie because there were no VCRs.
Yeah.
There was no streaming service. There was literally like you couldn't rent it if you wanted to see it again. Oh, God, this granny does not.
Oh no!
Now I'm picturing Kool-Aid Man busting into Star Wars, going, "Oh no!"
In the EU. EU.
The Star Wars box office was phenomenal, but there's a reason why. And actually, like for example, if you do it on a per ticket basis, Gone with the Wind is still by far the top movie of all time.
Yeah, and didn't the movie studios like really push to not allow the VCR to have recording function?
Yeah. Well, it was just in general, and of course, when VHS tapes and beta tapes first came out, it would cost $150 or $200 to buy it. It was not ever consumer friendly. You had to they started a Blockbuster rental business and stuff just for that reason. But yeah, I'm sorry, Godless Granny, that you have that picture in your head of your date with Frank Turek now.
When I was 15 years old in 1977, and then fast forward, my son, I think he went to see Phantom Menace. I think that was the first movie, Star Wars movie he saw in the theater, and he was equally enthralled. All these people are dressed in costume. What's going on here? So that's what really got.
Well, they're being disappointed. I worked on movies. I can say that they people were disappointed.
I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, then actually, to what you were saying there, Viced, Star Wars is incredibly generational, and so which the one that you grew up with, tends to be your favorite one. It's fascinating. I love right now. There's a lot of prequel love, and it's like, yeah, boosting my ego, right? That's really good. And I think probably the same thing's happening with Rogue One right now. Is that people who saw Rogue One as their first movie are now old enough to have a voice on social media.
Wait, is Rogue One old enough that they weren't old enough back when it came out now?
Yes.
Really?
Rogue One came out
2015? No.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
No, 27.
I was enthralled by
2007 was no, not 2007. 2017. Pardon
2016 was Rogue One.
Okay. Yeah.
So, those people. It's 6 years later now.
So it still blows my mind that like 6 years is such a long period of time for some people. But then again, I have kids. 6 years was like my daughter was 6 years ago.
There are kids who are going to in-person school for the first time right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah. Time is weird.
It's not real.
Got him into the whole Star Wars universe.
There you go. And my son kind of, really started with the third set of, trilogies. So, I mean, battles rage, don't they, about which films are the best and which are the worst and everything else. Probably we'll leave that for the kind of
generational.
Yeah, absolutely. But we won't delve into quite as controversial a subject as that. We'll just keep it on the religious aspect today. But
I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody rank the Star Wars right now. I'll start. Empire Strikes Back is my number 1. Rogue One is probably my number 2. I have a soft spot for Return of the Jedi. Like, I know everybody hates on the Ewoks and everything, but I have a thing for massive space battles. So I loved the space battle at the end, even if it was intercut with teddy bears. Episode 4 probably comes next, then the prequels with Episode 1 being at the bottom, and then the newer stuff.
How many are there total?
I don't know.
Too many to list quickly.
Yeah, I don't know
like
if we have time. Does anyone else want to chime in?
But I guess what's the number?
So how many Star Wars movies are there? There should be 11, right?
So the first 11.
I think there's 12, aren't there?
The first 12.
There's 9, and then
there's 9, and then there's Rogue One, Solo, and isn't there another one?
Well, I don't count the weird Clone Wars animated one that was meant to be a TV show and they put in theaters.
Yeah, it's just part of the TV show.
Hey,
so I think there's just 11.
Darth Bane trilogy. Nice.
I would say Revenge of the Sith first, and then Phantom Menace second, and A New Hope third. That's top 3.
Emma, do you have a top 3?
No, I abstain. From. I'm not doing
All
favorites on a Star Wars discussion. I got cancelled right at the beginning for saying
That's
that
right.
I like
So, yeah,
the prequels.
We'll move on.
Holiday special. There we go.
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking of they announced Rogue Squadron is coming out in 2023.
Oh yeah.
And so my favorite video game, I'm super pumped for that one.
Also an amazing series of novels. If you're willing to read Legends, that was some of the best stuff.
Yeah, those are some of the ones I have read, yeah.
But and the comic, Rogue Squadron comic. But yeah, I would not put any money if I was you, Viced, on that movie coming out.
I want it though.
I know.
We're tell us a bit about then. Just I suppose from your point of view, Paul, I'd be interested to hear a bit more of that story of yours about how your love of the movies and Star Wars how did that sit with your faith when you were a Christian, and what was the progression as you began to leave that faith? How did your kind of relationship with sci-fi and the movies.
Yeah, well,
change.
certainly there was a huge tension for me. I think Star Wars was the one thing in my life that I actually didn't think squared particularly well with my Christian faith. As Frank will remember, the New Age movement was the huge scare in the 80s and in church. So certainly was the Star Wars films with the Force being very Eastern focused and just the whole not very Christian at all. I was actually curious to see in Frank's book how he tied some of those things in. I think the prequel trilogy and those helped. But when I was a kid, boy, Star Wars, I had to kind of keep that secret from my church elders for sure, that was a love of mine because, and it convicted me. I felt convicted that this was sort of an Eastern philosophy and I needed to guard against that. And then the next film that George Lucas put out, not Howard the Duck, but the one after that was Willow. And Willow took it, again, another step. For those of you who are familiar with Lord of the Rings, Willow was in that same kind of genre, but it definitely brought in magic and all that kind of thing. And so my family definitely warned me very much against it. And then when I got recruited to go work for that company, boy, there was a lot of people praying for me and didn't think that there was a good idea for me to go work for George Lucas, specifically because his philosophies were so grounded in virtually everything. So he has a Christian. Does anyone else remember, or does anyone have, like, how did your churches, for those of you who were Christians, react to movies like this back in the day?
Growing up in like a homeschooled, conservative, fundamentalist, like Christian world, for the most part, the Christians I was involved with were overwhelmingly like in support of Star Wars, like big Star Wars fans. They seemed to believe that it jived well enough with like Christian philosophy. It was more like Harry Potter, and there was like the Golden Compass series, and there were a lot of stuff like that they seemed to have problems with. Star Wars, though, Christians seemed to be cool with. I mean, that was my experience.
I did not grow up with a lot of, and I don't know about, like, I know, Rhino, you did. Emma, I'm not too familiar with your experience, but I didn't grow up with any sort of like church upbringing, really. Like, I'm a Catholic, right? And that was what I was supposed to be growing up, but I never was. But I do remember in high school, yeah, Harry Potter was a big problem. Star Wars was always like I have Christian friends now who are super into Star Wars, and who may be watching this now, and I hope you come into the chat and ask some questions for all of us, but who are very much akin to, like, Star Wars is like the most Christian media franchise, which is interesting because, you know, it's obviously Frank Turek's take. But growing up in Dallas, you mentioned the Golden Compass, his Dark Materials series was always like just strung up on a cross and set on fire and crucified because it's just the worst. Happens to be one of my favorite fantasy series, like, of all time. Highly recommend everybody reads it. It's a wonderful story.
Basically an anti-religion story. That's
Absolutely, but
entirely by design.
In a way that is presented as like a love story, to where it's so universal and so wonderful that you can almost get past that. In my
his Dark Materials is one of like maybe 4 books that has actually brought tears to my eyes.
Absolutely, yes, 100% same.
Yeah, and I'm loving the show that they're making of it now.
Yes,
it's so good.
The last season, I think, is supposed to be pretty soon, right? The one that Amber Spyglass.
Emma just announced that she worked on his Dark Materials, so now we need to redirect the stream to that.
Sorry,
what's going on?
Still working on it, actually.
Yeah,
what? Tell us more. Tell us more.
On pain of death, I cannot. I just wanted to brag because you said you liked it.
Yes, I loved it. Okay, well, whatever you did on it, good work.
Thanks.
Yes. No, and as somebody who, because I read this series like right when everybody was like vilifying it, right? And I was like, I get it because I have a signed copy of The Amber Spyglass. The Amber Spyglass is probably my favorite book of all time because it deals with things like evolution. If you've never read the series and you are a fan of Paulogia and stuff that all of us do, read it. Like, read The Golden Compass, read The Subtle Knight, read The Amber Spyglass, like literally from like beginning to end, because it kind of gives you an idea of what this atheistic worldview is about, but in a way that's accessible to like younger people. Like I just love it. I'm sorry.
I have it in 1 volume that's like this thick.
Yeah, the omnibus, right? Do you have the one that has like the lantern slides at the end?
Oh, I
which
don't
are, like,
remember.
extra bits from
It's been a
Philip
long
Pullman.
time.
Okay.
And it's in my daughter's room right now. I'm trying.
Okay.
She keeps starting to read it and then putting it down and then coming back
I mean,
to it.
they're longish books. It's not as long as Harry Potter because it's only 3 books, but I mean, they're just fantastic, and it really will bring like tears to your eyes. Like, it's very universal in its message. I think the show has done a very good job. The author, I believe, is a producer on the show as well, Philip Pullman.
Yeah,
And
they
so
actually.
there are things that are a bit different from the book. Not to mention any spoilers, but some of which are like pretty important to the series that are put into the TV series as to kind of like speed it up a little bit without spoiling anything, that I think are just fantastic. So read it, watch the series.
That is awesome. Now I lost track. Oh yeah, we're here to talk about Frank Turek. All right, back to him. Background,
Sure.
of course, because he's North American, but he went out seeking to find. I remember, Emma. Did you have a comment on how your upbringing would have been like? Did people frown on certain franchises for you?
No, I mean I didn't grow up particularly religious, but my Christian friends that I grew up with, even the more orthodox ones, were big Star Wars, big comic book fans. It wasn't so much of a. It's different over here, I think.
Would you agree, in general, the panel, that Christians tend to be Star Wars fans, where atheists tend to be Star Trek fans?
Yes. 100%.
Yes, but because I've seen arguments made like there's magic in the Star Trek universe. They just throw a veneer of science onto it. Like they have gods. They just pretend that that's a being that has evolved
Right.
past his corporeal form.
As a kid growing up, I enjoyed both franchises, but I was a Christian, and I definitely led towards Star Wars. That became my life, and I think part of it is that like Star Wars celebrates religions in its own way, right? Whereas in Star Trek, I know there are all those things, but it tends to celebrate reasoning your way out of a problem.
And they just never acknowledge that the Q beings are basically gods.
Right, but but even in Star Trek, like I'm assuming that ultimately if they there's probably novels and stuff that are like here's the natural explanation for
Here's
Q
how a
beings.
being like Q
Right.
came around.
But then even like in the very, very early original series is my thing. See, I grew up atheist and I was always more into Star Trek, so maybe there's something in that. But like
Same.
they deconstructed God like a number of times throughout, the early stuff. So maybe that's why.
And that made me uncomfortable as a kid when I would watch Star Trek and they would wait, you can't explain away my God with this thing? La la la.
I've always loved both, and it's amusing to me because one of the things I remember in the 90s watching Star Trek on TV, thinking about what a wonderful world it would be when we finally developed the technology to have doors open automatically when you walk up to them. And now we live in a time when like my mother has legitimately walked into a door because she thought it was an automatic one, but it wasn't.
It should be, honestly.
We're literally video calling now, so you're just no jetpack. We didn't get our jetpacks or flying cars.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, their jetpacks are a thing.
Not,
They're not like the same as they would be in movies, but there have been like military exercises done where they're like boarding military ships with their jetpacks, and it's not those water ones that are shooting water. It's a legitimate jetpack.
right, but the Jetsons promised that kids at school would have them. Not every kid, but some of the kids at school would have them.
Fair enough.
Every philosophy and to throw everything in. As people who studied Star Wars know, Star Wars is this ultimate potpourri of inspirations from Flash Gordon and samurai movies and everything that George watched as a kid. He threw those all into one pot and made this beautiful soup called Star Wars. So there was definitely a huge tension. So I admire what Frank was doing in his book. I think when I was a Christian, I would have taken a very similar approach. He mentioned when Paul, the apostle, not myself, was being spoken to when he was in front of the Greeks, and he noticed that there was a pillar to the unknown god, and he was able to use that to take what the Greeks knew and what they experienced to point to his message. That's a very admirable take. I get, at least Frank, that's what I took away from your book, was that's. What do you think I was trying to do here at this point in the conversation? Any thoughts?
I have a question, Paul.
Yeah.
What's potpourri?
Emma, what's potpourri?
It's a little mix of flowery things and.
In light of the Dr. Oz thing on Twitter, it's crudité but with flowers.
So, potpourri, as far as I know, is basically you throw together a trail mix of things that you can't eat but smell nice, and then you put that in a bowl in your bathroom to make your room smell nice.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily have to be your bathroom, but potpourri is essentially, it's a mixture of random stuff. Am I wrong about that? That's.
I don't know if random would be the right word, but I've always thought it was flowers. But
undesignated.
I also hate smelly things, so I've never really put much thought into it.
It's a nice word. So.
I just used to like crunching it with my hands. I think I was doing it wrong.
Paul, I have a question as well.
All right.
From my partner, and he asked, why Paul look like Mark Hamill?
See?
So you don't look like young old Luke. Why Paul look like Mark Hamill?
I'm actually okay with that, and I get that a lot.
I that's the goal, right?
And I actually really enjoy that a few times things that Mark Hamill has been tagged in on Twitter, that they'll be like, you two look the same, as if Mark and I are somehow equal in the world. Even though he and I have met and did a thing together, I don't think he remembers. So,
really?
Yeah.
Was that the R2 documentary?
So Mark didn't get involved with the R2 documentary, unfortunately. No, we were doing the. I was involved with putting the original trilogy on DVD for the first time, and so it was the press junket for that.
Okay.
If you can imagine, the such thing is, it was very controversial in the company. Should we put this movie on DVD or not? It was like meetings I was in.
Wow.
So,
The answer wasn't just yes?
no, the answer wasn't just yes, because at the time they were trying to figure out the peak of when adoption would be, because they knew that Star Wars would essentially, everyone who had a DVD player would buy it. So if we wait for so many more DVD players to be sold, you can theoretically make that much more money. My argument always was, like, even if they don't, maybe they'll buy a DVD player to get the Star Wars thing. Like, I'm sure that happened.
Yeah.
My dad bought our first DVD player when The Phantom Menace came out, because of The Phantom Menace. So,
yeah. Anyway, I keep making myself feel really old, so we're going to go back to this thing. So what you're trying to say is, hey, you know what? If you're having a conversation about the new Spider-Man... Oh, this was me trying to be relatable to Frank's audience, by the way. I was like, I'm going to quote some scripture here and adapt it to something that they know from Corinthians, so that I am less menacing and terrible. When later on in the video, I tell them that your Gospels were not written by who you think, and no, there were no eyewitnesses involved.
Where's the lie?
Yeah. So I was deliberately at the start trying to sound as Christian as possible. I don't know if I pulled it off or not. Film, you don't have to shy away from that, or look down on someone for being influenced by the pop culture. But hey, let's spin that into for spiritual laws type thing.
I'd be interested in your, because I feel like attitudes have changed quite a bit in the Christian church in that sense, Frank. It's not nearly as controversial as perhaps it was in Paul's day, to say, yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan, or a Harry Potter fan, which we equally had its detractors in the Christian church. I'm sure there are still people who don't like it or disapprove of it, but you obviously believe, Frank, that you don't have to kind of imbibe a particular spirituality or start believing in witchcraft to be able to draw a...
Did he say imbibe a spirituality? Like get drunk?
He did.
Hey!
We're all imbibing. Some of us, you aren't.
I know. I don't know if this was common in anyone else's church, but I have attended churches where they would talk about getting drunk on the Holy Spirit. But I've always felt that was kind of a fringe position.
So we are an hour and 20 in, and it is 1:20 in the morning for Emma. I thank you for holding out with us. Yay. Emma may well just drop out at some point.
Yeah, I might just fade into the background at some
Quietly
point.
fade into the back.
But I've still got gin to drink, so
perfect.
You know.
We appreciate you on our totem pole here.
Unless the panel objects. So a lot of the stuff up front ended up being back and forth about Star Wars that like wouldn't be controversial again because I was trying to be non-controversial, and then it went to objective morality versus subjective morality.
Nazis.
Which does the panel does the panel want to delve into that versus? I'm thinking about skipping ahead to the point where we start talking about the reliability of scripture. Does anyone on the panel, or we can just keep going with the intro? Does anyone of the panel have a thought?
I'm okay with whatever.
I am the history person, so the objective morality stuff, and having watched the video, I'm like, oh god, like he always brings it up, right?
Right.
With every single point that he makes. Well, how do you know that your truth is the truth? And da 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 da. So, well, the Nazis were objectively bad, and I'm sorry if you can't like somehow force that into your brain.
Yeah,
like,
I felt like
in any capacity, logically, that the Nazis were always bad.
Well, the analogy I like to use is what temperature is the comfortable temperature to keep your house at? We all have different preferences when it comes to that, but we can all probably agree that 5 degrees Celsius ain't it.
Right.
Exactly.
So 5 degrees Celsius is objectively not the temperature to keep your house at for comfort, even though we don't all necessarily agree 100% on what is the correct temperature.
Andy writes, it'd be very remiss of us to not create a drinking game. Suggestions? Well, if we are playing this middle stuff, then the word objective and or morality would be good ones. But I might skip into it just to get to the parts that are most controversial and juicy. Let's see.
Take a shot every time Frank clearly doesn't know about Star Wars.
My son watches that stuff. I don't, but I'm just here on this interview because I'm Frank Turek.
That's right, because no one knows who Zach Turek is.
Right.
Yep. The survivability and the other things.
So
I know that.
In a nutshell, it's a kind of social kind of evolution, really, that drives our admiration for those kinds of figures, heroic
Paul,
figures.
if you don't pet that dog, I'm going to be very mad.
Hello, Bella.
You need to pet the puppy.
Normally Shannon is here. I was saying this before the stream started. Normally Shannon's here to deal with stray puppy stuff, but she's not today.
I don't want Shannon to deal with stray puppy stuff.
No, we need the puppy.
Like
puppy cam, yay!
Bella.
Bella. Hello.
She's already like had enough of this.
She's been napping.
She's like, who are you watching right now? Oh God.
That's right. All right. Oh, Bella. You're licking my trash
And I
pad
think
now.
the cross-cultural nature of it tells us that this is part of our survivability. This is part of our biology, not just the cultural context, because these archetypes tend to flow across cultures and time. So again, that's the undeniable part where we start to speculate as to why this is the case. So.
Frank, quick response before we go to our first break.
Yeah, I this is the interesting part of the conversation for me, because I want to know the grounding of morality. If there is no God, then how can we say that, say, the Allies were right and the Nazis were wrong? If the Allies are trying to protect their population and the
We could drink on Nazis.
No,
I'm doing imaginary shots with my pretend booze.
Yeah.
No.
Booze clues. Right. How do we know the Nazis were bad, you guys? Let's talk about it.
There's a part of me that wants to make jokes and be the contrarian and be like, well, maybe they were, but then like, no, I can't.
Nazis are trying to protect their population. How do we adjudicate between those two? If the atheistic worldview is right and there is no purpose to life, then how can we say that it is the Allies who are right because they have the more noble purpose and the Nazis are wrong because they don't?
Well, the only way we can adjudicate anything is by agreeing to an adjudicator and agreeing to a set of rules that we will go to an arbiter. You can't just declare that the ref is on your side, and therefore the ref will always rule on your team. I think one of the things, you need to, for anyone to agree that the Nazis were wrong and the Allies were right, you would need to at least agree upon some goals of human flourishing or some goals of equality. And you've talked about this before. You know that goals can get you to a certain. Explain, epistemologically how we get there.
Word workers.
The question is, do we need anything beyond that for this God? What does the God bring you?
How do we
other
pronounce
than
this
the idea
that's
that
on
this
screen?
is a
word worker's wisdom.
A word worker's wisdom. Apparently, I said this wrong once before in a super chat. So, word worker's wisdom. Thank you.
Well, how did you say it before?
I think I said weird workers.
I could see that, yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump ahead to see if I can get to the place where we talk about soccer, so I can get Emma's input on whether I
Yes,
said anything
soccer
correctly.
analogy. It's a global game, Paul. Everybody knows about it.
Objective standard of good beyond humanity. It seems if there isn't, it's just one person's opinion.
Football
Loving
is
them
the
a good
objective
thing.
better name for soccer.
Well, that's an interesting example you give because, of course,
There we go.
I'm not talking about epistemology. How do we know right and wrong? I'm talking about what is the ultimate standard of goodness. Maybe an illustration will help. Let's use soccer because it's the international game. How do you know that your
Emma, that's what we call football.
The international game of soccer.
That's right. That's right.
How American can you be?
I am on the side of the Europeans here. Soccer should be called football because it's the one where you actually use the feet for the ball.
It's the one with the foot and the ball.
The one where they carry the ball around in their hands all the time should not be called football.
Should be called
they
carry
kick it
ball.
once or twice.
American carry ball.
Yeah, there you go.
The ball.
Safe rugby is what they should call it.
That's right.
team scoring a goal is better than the other team scoring a goal. Well, the only way you could know that if you knew the purpose of the game, right? If there's no purpose to the game, you can't say that a goal for your side is better than a goal for the other side. You have to know the purpose. And it seems to me if there's no purpose to the game, you can't adjudicate. And if there's no purpose to life, you can't say that murdering Jews, homosexuals, and gypsies is a bad thing and loving them is a good thing.
Well, that's an interesting example you give because, of course, everyone on the soccer pitch needs to agree what the...
Is it called a soccer pitch?
Yeah, the football pitch. Yeah.
I think that your rebuttal to this, Paul, is like excellent, by the way.
Appreciate that. My main concern as I watched it again today was, wait, is it a soccer pitch? I was like, I'm going to look like the dumbest person.
See,
This is literally a UK
Pitch,
show.
field,
I'm not
it's
sure
fine.
what he was trying to get at with the analogy in the first place. Like, is he trying
don't know
to
either.
say that, like, because there is no objective which team should win, that's what the atheist moral system is? Is that what he's trying to say? Or is he trying to say that we know that objectively God's team getting a goal is the good thing? So, like, I'm not sure where he was even going with that analogy.
I think it just seemed, and I mean, I hate to say this, but a little amateurish, especially regarding, Paul, your rebuttal to this. And that what's the reason why you play soccer?
To have fun.
Really a loaded question, like
Very
Well,
strange, sort of banal analogy. It's quite
it's
weird.
a little amateurish, unfortunately. So,
Well, yeah, Frank is oddly enough, he's assuming that everyone is there to win the game.
right. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And of course, that was where I kind of poke a hole in his analogy, where it's like, Frank, well, and I think we could agree, like, in order to actually have a game, you need to everyone arbitrarily for a time while they're on the field, while they're on the pitch, will agree to a set of rules because we've just arbitrarily agreed to do that. And then once you've arbitrarily agreed, then you can objectively say, oh, kicking the ball toward the opposition, or, there's objective things you can say about whether a play is good or bad.
There is a moral ambiguity to soccer as much as there is to morality, right?
Right.
Which is the whole point of this. It's kind of ridiculous.
Isn't it a great example, too, though, that humans can create rules and follow them because, hey, this seems like a good goal. This seems like something we can agree that we all want to go towards, and we can create rules and even change them in the future if need be. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like a great argument.
They're not black and white. Yeah.
Frank could not
Yeah.
forfeit.
So one of the things that I kind of go to is that I've lost track. My brain's doing weird things tonight. I like read a comment while I was formulating that sentence, and now I forgot what I was even saying.
All right, well, I'm gonna play this
Cat's
for a
out
second.
here to destroy us. I know that.
I'm gonna play this
No,
for a second. while
well,
my
okay.
dog-
So if just so you know, it was a good comment. It was the football is rugby for wimps. But I feel like if that gets out there too much, then the American Football Association or whatever it's called will go back to like pushing for no helmets and crap.
Right.
all right, let's see what I say.
Rules are, or else there is no game, and so they all assent to what the rules are. But you say purpose of the game. The purpose of the game may not be for everyone to win. There's some people who are on the pitch to win the game.
I remember what I was
Some
going to
people,
say.
the purpose
Pause,
to
pause,
be there
pause.
is to make their parents proud. Some people, their purpose to be there is to get
Paul.
exercise.
Where'd Paul go?
Everyone comes with
He
their
abandoned
own
us.
purpose.
He abandoned us.
But they've all agreed. Oh, you know what? While we're on the field, these are the rules we're going to go by, so that we can objectively
We lost
know.
Paul.
Whether
Does anyone have
one
control over anything?
Move is better than another move.
That was
That
me.
There we
doesn't
are.
mean
Hey, he's
that
back.
There is some.
I had to, my dog needed to leave.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
All right, so what are we talking about now?
I remembered what I was going to say.
Perfect.
Yeah, so what I was going to say was that one of the things that apologists like to do is they'll bring up these massive moral issues like the Nazis and the Holocaust. And it's like, okay, yeah, everybody can agree on that, so that's the obvious one. But what about something smaller? Like there was a job that I worked at once where I became a manager unofficially just because there was no manager and somebody needed to do the management shit. And one of the things that I did there was I set up a point of sale system that they just didn't have before. Everything was done manually. So I set up a point of sale system on their computer. And but it was the reservation system. I did the point of sale thing too, but specifically this is the reservation system. I just used a free web-based reservation program. When we had like a laptop at the bar that we would take reservations on. And then one day after they fired me while I was on vacation through a text message. So it's like the worst way I've ever lost a job was like plane lands from my thing. As soon as it connects to the Canadian Towers, I get a text message saying, you don't have a job anymore. And so about 6 months later, I got a call from the company that did the reservation system saying, oh, by the way, we're changing all our domain names. So you need to update yours or your stuff's not going to work anymore. And because I was the only contact for that, they had no one to talk to at the restaurant. And I did not pass that information along to the restaurant. Now, some people will say that that was an okay thing to do because the restaurant treated me like shit. If they wanted their reservation system, they should have taken ownership of that. It should have been on their plate. That's kind of where I fall. That's why I didn't give them any of the stuff. Like I didn't give them my login credentials either. And other people are saying like, no, that was a shitty thing to do because now there's potentially other employees at that restaurant that are now put in a hard spot because they suddenly can't access the reservation system. And that shouldn't be on them. That should be on the restaurant. So like that's a more ambiguous thing where like what was the right thing to do in that instance? How do we objectively measure what the right thing and wrong thing to do in that instance was? We can't go to the Bible for that. There's no Bible verse on thou shalt give your employer your login credentials.
Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure. Yeah, pretty darn sure. So that's kind of my point is that like like with the big things, it can be obvious what the right thing and the wrong thing to do are. But when it comes to the smaller things that actually affect most people in their day-to-day lives, it's much harder to decide that this is always wrong and this is always right.
Yeah. And Christians are still making moral decisions the same way that atheists are when it comes to most things, whether it be doctrinal things like should women put things on their heads when they're in church or, should we drink out of 1 cup or 5 cups? Do you have to be baptized for salvation or not? They make doctrinal decisions that they all disagree on, and that's not based on the Bible, or they're all based on the Bible, but they're all different. But then there's plenty of things outside of the Bible that they still make moral decisions on, like slavery, for example. Most Christians would say slavery is bad, but they're not getting that from the Bible. You
run in different circles than I do online.
No, I understand there are Christians.
Frank Turek
But that's yeah.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, though. Most Christians I know would say that it's bad.
Even the larger moral issues that seem like the very simple black and white ones are subject to change, and it wouldn't be the same obvious answer, hundreds of years ago that we would give now, like on slavery. So
Frank Turek just likes to opine that, we're all hypocrites, we're all sinners, and that kind of justifies that black and white mentality. So far as what I've seen from his videos and stuff, which is unfortunate.
Well, and Greg Kokel has this idea that as long as there's one thing that universally everyone agrees on, then there is objective morality. So his one thing is it's wrong to torture babies for fun. And
they always have to add for fun.
You have to have the for fun there.
Because in some sects of Christianity, God tortures babies.
Sure. Or you can imagine a scenario where it's like, oh yeah, the aliens come and like, oh, if you torture this one baby, everyone can live, but if you don't, like, you can come up with weird scenarios. So that's why they add on the for fun.
Which kind of defeats the purpose. That makes it subjective.
That's right. It's right.
The fact that you need to add for fun as a qualifier means that it needs to be qualified.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see if I give an actual good answer to this. Grander purpose to soccer.
Right, but you wouldn't be able to adjudicate between a good play and a bad play unless there was a purpose. No, I agree that in soccer, we're using an illustration here. The rules are arbitrary. They could be different, right? But if there is a God, then the rules come from his nature, and they're not arbitrary. If there is no God, then everything's arbitrary. It's just Hitler's opinion.
I'll let you come back on
churches.
this in a moment, Paul. We're going to go to a break. Fascinating that we've
that was
already
a terrible spot
got
for
well
a
into.
break.
Weird.
I'm glad you said so. So watching this back, when I was in the live conversation, I'm still learning to do live conversations, so I'm like so grateful to people that are even watching me do this kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, that's super chat. I apologize.
Oh well, we'll go for the super chat. All my favorite creators are creatures of God.
Sure he is.
God is here. Yeah, there you go. I noticed watching it back that every time I felt like I was getting Frank a little bit on the ropes, that Justin kind of came in, and we'll see if everyone agrees that that's what was happening.
The last bit, definitely, when he was like, all right, and then we're done. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like Frank did not give a very good answer to that, and I feel like you could have come back from that, but then suddenly it's break time.
Yep. I'm definitely skipping over his ads.
I'm not going to watch his ads.
No. In fact, I may want to go to, let's see where we're at now.
But it turns out that Darth
almost
Vader is Luke's dad, Anakin Skywalker, and the ultimate baddie.
I'm going to skip over those stuff on whether or not Star Wars has a redemption arc. It wasn't that exciting.
Well, you make an interesting point about this, Frank, that maybe there's a rationale, if there is a rationale, for why they changed the Darth Vader Anakin character in that final scene where he appears, sort of as a sort
of... Frank really wanted to use the point that they put Hayden Christensen back in the last scene, young Anakin into the last scene, as some kind of way to say that, yeah, Jesus, just like Jesus washes you to the way like when you were good. Which is just weird because I don't think anyone would say that the Anakin, like, if anything, you should have gone back to the Jake Lloyd version,
really,
right? Where he was still pure of heart.
Are you an angel?
So we have a super chat from Ven. I just wanted to thank you. I began deconverting in 2015 and it wasn't pleasant. I became angry and I could have easily turned toxic. I don't know when I found your channel, but you helped me become grounded and you gave me support while I found myself again. You too, Rhino.
Oh,
hi, Ven.
Yay. Well, thank you, Ven. That is
Glad
incredibly generous. Wow. Thank you so much.
You guys are so approachable and awesome too, which I can appreciate. Paul, Rhino, you guys, because I have more experience with both of you guys. I'm sorry, Emma and Dallas, but I'm newer to your content, and I can appreciate it, but same here, even though I didn't deconvert. You guys are very approachable and always willing to have a conversation, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You say that, but you should see my the unread message inbox on my Twitter. I barely ever even look at that.
When you do have a conversation, it's so great, though.
Ben continues, I know what it's like to be so indoctrinated you can't see a way out. I think I was blinded as a person can be. If you can somehow come out of the dark, I think anyone can. In part thanks to people like you. Thank you for all you do. It does make a difference. Thank you so much. I know tonight we're kind of
a lot,
just,
Ben.
That's so awesome.
Tonight we're just kind of having fun, like just to hang out. Frankly, I didn't think Emma or Dallas would talk to me if I didn't like have something cool to invite them to. So I was excited for
True.
You could have asked me to join you for any whatever it was, and I would have.
No, I was quasi teasing, but yes, thank you. It was an excellent excuse because one of the things I find on my channel is that like some of you guys, you're kind of generalists like me. Like I think everyone on the panel, I think it's fair to call all of us like we have general interest in the topic as opposed to like we have a super niche thing that we know everything about.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to bring on generalists sometimes because it's, when you have, you're going to have biblical slavery on, let's get on Dr. Josh because he wrote a book about that, or, some of those kind of things. So this was an exciting format to get some of us generalists together who are more fun than, than the other people.
All right. I'm going to message Dr. Josh right now, tell him you said that I'm more fun than he is.
I think it's good to have comments like that because a lot of people tend to have this notion of, well, what's the point? You guys are all talking in an echo chamber. But I mean,
I get that all the time.
Listen. People listen to Paul, people listen to Emma and Dallas, and like maybe they don't do the super chat, they don't comment, but like they're still there, they're still listening, and they're thinking like, that's kind of interesting. And I mean, that's all you can really hope for half the time with what we do. I mean, I don't go out like seeking to deconvert people, which is maybe what, I don't know, somebody like Frank Turek thinks for us. Like I don't make content, you guys do, but the purpose is to just initiate conversation. It's not you're wrong and I'm right. It's let's talk about this in different ways, in ways that are maybe different from what we think and what we believe and what we know based on how we've grown up or the people that we talk to. It's not an echo chamber, basically. So it's awesome. Yeah. I love it.
And also, one of the things, and Nidimus, thank you so much for your super chat as well, offering for the Apostles of Deconstruction. One thing like I advocate for a lot recently is that there's no single way to do it. So I know that there's sometimes talking about like people's tone, or that I like this tone better than that tone, or which is fine. But when it gets to no, everyone should do it in tone A or tone B. I'm strongly against that. I feel like
different people respond to different things.
Exactly, and I think that I needed both Peter Enns, who is like a weird brand of Christian, and Richard Dawkins and George Carlin. Like I needed all of them, and they don't speak anywhere close to the right thing, right? So you kind of anyway. I appreciate everyone on this panel mainly to say like Morgan hasn't been swearing today, which is just really weird.
I did.
I had noticed that actually.
Like videos because I'm like, how am I going to sound? What am I going to look like? Like I went all like crazy like theater kid with it, and then I was like, oh shit, I only said fuck like one time. But then I realized it was like, we're having a discussion about things. I very much can I have those two parts of me, right? Where I'm in and out of character or whatever. But I appreciate that part of me a lot, and I think everybody else does too, which is cool. So it's fun to see the people who are like, oh, this is the first time I've seen Morgan or whatever. I love it.
But if you didn't come onto my channel initially and like add in the colorful language that I never used.
Somebody had to do that.
I think the early channel would have suffered from that in that it just brought different voices, and it's like, oh, we're affirming that if you're already out, Morgan is your avatar, and if you're still in, Paul is your avatar.
Have that deconversion story. Like I grew up with this, because my family's Hispanic, so I grew up with this just pseudo Catholic veneer of things all the time, right? Like we had like a pseudo grace before things, we had midnight mass and all this other sort of stuff, and I was supposed to pray before bed and did that until I was like 6 or 7. So it wasn't like drilled into me from a very young age, really, to just have this fundamentalist aspect of Christianity pushed on me. So it's just a different experience, because I know for like you and Rhino, it was like it's a lot different, a lot different experience.
That's right.
For sure. Can't even imagine. I know, Paul, we were just talking about on the pre-show about how you didn't have an alcoholic beverage
Right.
until
like 5 years ago.
The year that I started talking to you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still learning on my alcohol.
Right.
So I'm open to suggestions, except for beer. It's not my favorite.
Refrigerated piss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall seeing something about that today.
That's right.
Yeah, same.
That was your fault, Rhino. Samantha,
Gin tastes like dish soap.
Who did that? I wonder.
I started deconverting during COVID. I feel so free now. Thank you for this content. Wow. During COVID would have been a very interesting time to deconvert.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found your way out, Samantha, and it would have been. I hope you're finding some community now that you can surround yourself with.
Can you say fuck now? I gotta bring it back. I'm sorry.
Can I say fuck now?
Paul.
Okay, we need like a $10,000 in super chat. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's Friday. It's Friday late now. We're just
if there's a $10,000 super chat, Paul will sing that song.
The Oak Ridge Boys song.
Is it? I thought it was Tim Minchin. The
that
list
one.
of swear words.
Yes. No, I thought you were referring to my other weird thing that I did this week. But
I did enjoy
no.
watching you sing.
Did you watch that, Dallas? I'm sorry.
That was unexpected, but it was a surprise, but a welcome one.
I had suggested in our pre-show
Star Wars line. Very nice.
organization chat that Paul and I sing a duet tonight, but he never got back to me, so we didn't practice.
I didn't know.
Oh my gosh.
Is there a lost tape of Paulogia getting more than Canadian angry?
Yes.
Matt, there's no... Well, actually, probably some of these people have seen it, or heard it at least, but it's what I do when I walk my dog. I listen to these kind of videos for the first time in podcast form, and my new neighborhood thinks I'm a crazy man who's yelling "No!" as I wander around.
Your Vader impression.
Yeah, exactly. A Vader impression. When really I'm just listening to Frank Turek podcast for the first time.
That you've done with him already.
Yeah.
Your interviews.
Exactly. Well, it's weird that I'll need to keep going back to covering him. He and I have not become friends yet. Let's just say. All right. That was very derailed. Let's see where we go.
A redeemed sort of soul, almost. As he's back in his youthful state, which perhaps suggests he's back to his kind of pre-evil.
Whether with or without a god, that altruism and find what we're talking together and said, you know what, that's not the way that all of us can flourish. Imagine that other people also don't like to be murdered. So
decisions, but you're actually right and I'm wrong, because there's not just follow the laws of physics. So it seems to me
that is something else I had to come to. I wish more non-Christians would agree that there are.
This was kind of fun when Frank would say things like, well, if you're a determinist, then you didn't have a choice but to be an atheist. And I'm like, yeah. And he's used to a little more pushback.
It's weird how that works, yeah.
I like that while you were skipping around there, we got an out of context Frank Turek just saying, you're right and I'm wrong.
Clip that.
Shocking. Yeah.
I need to get myself off of this frame. That's not me very flattering.
And of course, Iron Man goes from a playboy over.
There's a term in fandom called
yay. Here we go.
To save his universe, and he dies in order to allow other people to live. And of course, Iron Man goes from a playboy.
Is he saying Jesus was a playboy? Because I assume he's analogizing this to Jesus.
Of course he is. Yeah, there's all kinds of weird things if you want to connect these dots.
I think he's saying that Jesus was a better character because he didn't have a character arc. But
where he's probably, if I was going to be generous, where he's probably going is that the playboy section of Iron Man's life, that is our sin that Jesus took on the cross.
Interesting.
That could be the gospel.
That doesn't. That's not a very good analogy, but that's probably where he's going.
So you're all wrong because I read his book.
Okay.
So where he's going is that that because and it's even worse argument than all of you were guessing.
That's often the case with Frank, actually.
So because we venerate characters who sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
The reason that we think that is a good attribute is because Jesus did it first, and we're really just secretly recognizing how good Jesus is when we applaud Iron Man.
Wasn't the Battle of Thermopylae before Jesus, when those 300 guys sacrificed themselves to protect their country?
They did it
or
for
city-state.
Yeah, well, that was actually, if you go to J. Warner Wallace's book now, you would just say that God is setting you up. Has anyone read the Person of Interest book by J. Warner Wallace? So in that book, there's a chapter saying that all the myths that happened before Christianity that seem Christian-like, that was God deliberately planting those stories so that humanity would be ready emotionally to accept the Jesus story.
But those people,
I refuse to accept that stupid argument. Oh, God.
For reasons.
That's ridiculous. That is patently ridiculous. Like, could there be any more obvious example of, like, no matter what, my answer's the right answer? Doesn't matter. Like, oh, this proves it wrong because it came before it. No, that was leading up to it. Oh, and this story is similar because it came after it. Yeah, that's because it's copying. Like, come on.
Yeah, it makes it entirely non-falsifiable, of course.
Yeah. There's like the epitome of post hoc reasoning. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at there, but my brain broke again.
Those people are all in hell because reasons.
Right. Well, because humanity wasn't ready to accept
Right.
the Jesus story yet.
They were just there as pawns. Right?
We
It's
hadn't
just
heard enough
giant-
Mercury. Yeah.
The
That's right.
giant chess game of God.
I feel
sacrificing people.
I feel like the first generation after Original Sin would have been the ideal spot to insert Jesus,
Right?
because then everybody would have been Christian right from the get-go, right? Because
Or at least had a chance.
Like my dad talked to God personally, so yeah, I know there's something to this.
Exactly.
Well, Cain and Abel, they talked to God personally.
So anyway, in this book, Frank basically takes all the characters and basically says the reason we like them is because they're like Jesus.
That's stupid.
Sure, Jan.
That's so fucking stupid.
A lot of moral development ultimately becomes a sacrificial hero. And you can take elements from all these different superheroes. And as you mentioned, Justin, we do Captain America, Iron Man, Wonder Woman, Harry Potter.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, Batman, Star Wars, of course.
The Lord of the Rings chapter is great because literally J.R.R. Tolkien was deliberately doing allegories of Christianity.
I can't wait to read
Famously, Tolkien was of the opinion that, like, he was writing his characters and he was basically saying that, like, yeah, he was doing Christian allegories or whatever, but if you asked him about it, he would tell you, like, no, you can interpret whatever you like from my characters. That's the beauty of literature, is that every individual reader gets what they want, what they need out of the story. They can do that. So, like, I know he grew up in a time when being gay was probably was frowned upon for sure. I don't know what his personal opinion on being gay would have been, but I think if he had been alive today, if he'd seen that, like, he might have been okay with the interpretation that Sam and Frodo were a couple. Like, I know that was modeled off of, like, him and his manservant when he was younger. So like, they weren't originally meant to be that, but he was on record as saying that you can interpret the story any way that you like. So for Frank to come along behind and say, no, you have to interpret in the Christian way, is kind of goes against the author's intentions.
It's true. It's not true. Yeah.
The way they filmed it
Tolkien
when
was-
go ahead, Dallas.
I was just going to say, like, he explicitly said he was trying to create a new mythology, not propaganda, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So in the chapter in Frank's book where he talks about Lord of the Rings and like all these like this is analogous to that and this is analogous to that, I'm like, well, that's not by accident, Frank. Like it's literally someone doing that. It's kind
Christian
of like,
author writes a book with Christian themes in it. Go figure.
it's a little bit like when they make the prophecy arguments that, you know, oh well, how could Israel possibly have become a nation again? You know, but it's like, well, no, people were really trying hard. for that to happen for a long time. Like they tried to make it work. Oh, Morgan's gone for now. All right, let's keep listening.
But there's something perfect about Jesus. First of all, he's morally perfect. You know, Captain America is kind of a static moral hero who doesn't really develop morally, but he's not morally perfect. He can still be a hair splitter and annoy people with his righteousness. Like Jesus never does, right? Jesus is full. Are you
kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Jesus never annoyed people with his righteousness. That was like his whole thing, was annoying the Pharisees with shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Truth,
read a
but
book,
he's also
Frank.
full of grace. Jesus is full of holiness, but he's also full of approachability.
I bet you he was full of holiness after those nails came out.
I also, of course, was not anticipating that, you know, they edited this later. So, you know, when I'm assuming that Frank is, sometimes they cut to my reactions in the edited version. I'm clearly not buying this stuff.
Jesus is exceedingly strong, but he's also tender. He's confident, but he's also humble. He's completely mission-oriented to give his life to save the world, but he's also loving. And you don't find this in any character.
Thank you for the super chat, Donald. Before he could send Jesus, God had to figure out how to deal with iron chariots. Yes, that's a tough one.
Morgan's
in
backstage.
Fiction or nonfiction throughout history.
Now
you
Morgan
don't find this kind of character. In fact, someone put it this way: if Jesus didn't exist, he couldn't have been invented. He is just
why?
No. Okay, nothing can be invented unless it first does not exist.
What?
That's the nature of it. That's what an invention is. You invent something that did not exist before. If it doesn't exist, then you invent it. Like, that's just a completely nonsensical statement.
But it sounds good.
No, it doesn't.
It's bizarrely common as well, and I think it was a Willow the Wendigo video that we watched where somebody said the same thing, and my partner and I were talking about it afterwards, and it was just like, I could write, like, we think we could write a way better Bible with a cooler Jesus. Like, there's no the idea that nobody could have invented Jesus. I could have invented a way cooler Jesus. Guaranteed.
Part of Frank's book is basically that argument, and it's like a Muslim argument. He's borrowing.
I was just thinking that. This is like the whole, like, oh, nobody can write a surah as good as the surah in the Quran.
Exactly. And I was just thinking, well, what if I wrote exactly the Bible, but what if I just made Jesus a she? Like, I would have made a whole different story, but did I make it better? Did I make it worse? Like,
I think it's just disingenuous for him to not secede to pre-Jesus history, because I'm the historical person, right? So I'm like, okay, so what happened like during Jesus's time, contemporary to him, after, before, and it's like, there's nothing unique about Jesus outside of the time that he's in. These apocryphal Jewish prophets, right? Like, it's just bizarre.
People in the chat are saying if you gender swap Jesus, it's Jesus.
No apologist insofar that I've seen maybe has talked about the real like historicity, contemporary, before, after, of like, okay, yeah, so there were these apocryphal guys, Jesus happened to be the best one because of X reason. No, he just happened to be the one that won out. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Stein Jarl writes, Christian Theology 101, dunk, dip, or sprinkle. Oh.
Is this with reference to like ketchup on fries?
I assume this is baptism modes.
Oh, okay. I'm so far removed from the Christian lifestyle now that my first thought is French fries.
Yeah.
I was wondering about sprinkle. Is that like vinegar instead of ketchup?
Maybe. That's a Canadian thing, I think.
It's the Canadian thing.
Do they not do that elsewhere with vinegar?
No.
I personally don't, because I don't really like it.
Is it, what kind of vinegar? Like, what's...
It could be white vinegar or malt vinegar.
Okay. Well, yeah, malt vinegar for like fish and chips is what I think, but...
Yeah, that's
Okay.
very popular. Yeah.
Gotcha.
My dad loves vinegar on his fish and chips. My dad's also from Lancashire, so mushy peas all the way.
Amen.
Do they have vinegar on tables at a fast food restaurant, Emma, in the UK?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the type of place, but yeah.
Okay.
If you're going for somewhere for chips, yeah.
Okay.
Not
So that's
on-
not just a Canadian thing, but they didn't
No,
in
no.
California when I lived there.
Absolutely not.
No. All right. Oh, I remember so I thought a female Jesus might be a better character because, of course, the apologetic is, well, women weren't even believed, or they were
there'd be
2/3 of a person. So a female Jesus accomplishing what Jesus did would have been at least a third better, right?
Sure.
It's much
Wait,
more it overcomes a lot more obstacles to get to where she would have to be.
A character that is unfound in any other nonfiction or fiction anywhere. And I could go into a lot more detail.
Is this where
but I
Mary
wanna
Sue's come up?
give Paul an opportunity to
Right.
respond
Go
because I
ahead,
know he
Paul.
thinks
Yeah.
differently of this.
So one of the interesting things about there's no character like this. He's very perfect. I'm not sure if Frank has heard this term before, but there's a term in fandom called Mary Sue, and a Mary Sue character is a character that is too perfect to be real, and the Mary Sue designation came up to specifically designate lazy writers, and in most specifically when fans
You just called the Bible authors lazy.
I love how Frank
I
is
saw the reaction.
yes, what are you talking about?
Yeah. You guys have all heard of Mary Sue's, I assume.
Yes.
Paul, you're
Yeah, of
too
course.
hip for Frank Turek. You're not as
Well.
old as you think you are. You are
If-
far too hip.
Too hip for Frank Turek is not exactly a resume line.
It's always low, but like it's still there,
It's my new channel banner. More hip than Frank Turek.
That's right. That's right.
That's such a
You
fucking
definitely
great
caught him off
response.
guard, though.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, I have no idea what the fuck. I could just see it in his eyes.
Yep.
and write fan fiction about Harry Potter or Star Wars or Twilight or whatever, the fans typically tend to put in characters that are too perfect. They don't have problems. And that's considered to be lazy writing. That's not considered to be some kind of miracle that someone came up with a perfect character. And so, you use Harry Potter. The Harry Potter book I thought was great. Chapter in your book, pardon me, was great. Outlining exactly how Harry Potter is just.
Have you guys ever read a side-by-side comparison of the Harry Potter character and Jesus?
No.
I never have before either. It's astonishing how
Very
close.
Sue shit.
Basically, it's a kid. It's a little kid who's born with the only purpose of their life is to be sacrificed for everyone else, and pretty much nothing they do. They do some really cool stuff, but nothing they do matters, other than this sacrifice and then a resurrection shortly afterwards, negating the sacrifice. And it's just Frank Turek's book goes plot by plot point on it, which I'd never thought of it before, and it also made me think, oh, maybe this is why J.K. had this in mind, and maybe this explains some of her attitudes now, that she's really like more Christian than we let on.
Harry Sue.
Harry Sue. Jester Lord of the Fool says, I'm piggybacking that argument with everyone that loves Vader because Anakin was as whiny as Job. Yeah.
Was Job whiny? I feel like Job's thing was that he didn't whine, and that's what made him pass the test. If we're going whiny, go Habakkuk or however you say it.
Way too perfect, because he's supposed to be this allegory. So again, I kind of, I was surprised when I got to that point in your book where you said this character is so perfect that these people who weren't literary geniuses couldn't come up with them, when the exact opposite is true. The worse writer you are, the fewer flaws you tend to give your characters. So
Dallas, you're nodding. That was an okay thing for me to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
If you're not looking at all facets of your writing and character building, why would you not make your chosen one the chosen one,
Right. And that is what I didn't let him get into as much here, but that is his argument in the book, is that the writers could never have come up with this. It's like, yeah.
It's bizarre. It completely dismisses like writing in antiquity, which is something that I'm sure Frank Turek knows nothing about. As somebody who's like like I'm an amateur historian. I read, like, I am the history person. I don't like arguing the morality as much, but the history, I love it because it's like, okay, well, how did these ancient writers write about things? And then how can we, commute that with things that are more contemporary at the time or like afterwards and that sort of thing. Like, I know Richard Carrier has a really, really cool, I'm not sure if it's in his book or in like one of the talks that he gives that parallels all the different parts of the New Testament with one another in a kind of poetic literary stance that makes sense to us, that basically confirms that it's written as a literary aspect.
Is that the one where he shows that like Matthew kind of ruined Mark by trying to be more brief? Because like he would eliminate some of the symmetry of the stories just by having it all happen at once.
Right. And so, so there's definitely like a lot of parallel aspects of it, but it's, I don't know, the way that I'm trying to describe it. I don't have my notes at the moment, but it's really interesting and cool, but just goes to show the way that the people in antiquity wrote completely different than how, like, we have this hindsight bias, right? Of like, well, Mark said this, John said that. Well, that's not even who wrote the damn thing. So we can't even say that. We don't know who fucking wrote it. And that's the one thing I get really bent out of shape with this specifically, is the people who wrote the New Testament is just totally fucking anonymous, dude.
Well, the funniest part I find about the who wrote the New Testament, the Gospel specifically, is that the one where the best case could be made for the person whose name is on the book being written would be Luke. That's also the one that explicitly says, no, I was not an eyewitness. I'm compiling accounts that I saw from other people.
Exactly. And I cannot stand the people. And I mean, I've talked to people who have said this, and I'm just like, you're wrong. Like, I mean, we can debate a ton of other stuff. We can debate the morality of things and like, have this argument and blah, blah, blah. One of us is like maybe right. One of us is closer to the truth, whatever. You cannot tell me that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are eyewitness testaments. They are not. They aren't. They aren't even written by the people whose names are on the masthead of these Gospels. That is not true. And I mean, I feel bad because maybe there are some people here deconverted who've maybe never known that. And I don't want to like act like I'm yelling at you directly. But just the audacity of these people to say that, right? Like, well, they saw this. No, they didn't. They probably ate a fucking mushroom and had a trip. Paul even says this, right? Bible Paul. Like, oh yeah, he came.
That was Revelation.
Tripping balls, dude. Like, come on. No, like it's disingenuous to say that, and I hate that. So I apologize, but
no worries. Well, if we get that far, I say something similar to Frank, and his face makes a face like he's never heard it before either.
Yeah,
so
and that's bizarre to me, right?
Yeah.
Just really seemed like a strange argument to me.
Well, the reason I think the difference here is I agree with you that in fiction, it's hard to develop a perfect character, but Jesus is...
No, that was the opposite of my point.
It's literally the opposite.
I agree with exactly what you didn't say. Yeah.
I agree with the opposite of what you said. It's like, yeah, we know that. That's why Paul said it.
Is not a boring character. He's still timeless. He's the most influential human being in history. And for him to have that kind of impact...
Not according to the Beatles.
Have that character where he has that perfect tension between grace and truth, between strength and tenderness, between confidence and humility. You don't find that anywhere else. So I agree with you. If you just made him morally perfect and that was it, there was nothing else to him.
It sounds like the reason people don't like the Mary Sue characters is because they're flat and boring rather than they're perfect necessarily. Mm-hmm. Is that what I'm getting the sense?
No, not necessarily. Usually they're the best, and I don't want to go off this too long, but usually they're like they've accomplished something really amazing at a young age, or they've typically they pull out this superpower that they've got just at the right moment. It's one of those things.
So like Jesus amazing the people in the temple when he was 12.
Right. Yes. Thank you for catching on to what I was trying to do there.
Yeah.
But I know your book, Frank. Oh, one super chat. Was the burning bush a cannabinoid plant? Maybe. That's a good thought.
Are cannabinoids hallucinogenic? I didn't think they were.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
They can.
I think if they burn and you inhale them, then yes, right?
I have hallucinated on cannabinoids. I can tell you that much.
Okay. So is cannabis a subcategory of cannabinoids, and there are other ones that are more hallucinogenic? Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm complete noob when it comes to drug stuff.
I just want to go off the rails once more. Muggles Cake Sniffer, what is your proof that the 4 Gospels were factually written by other people than what was claimed? There is no claim that they are eyewitnesses. Next question.
You talked about how, how Jesus always had the perfect retorts, and always had the perfect thing to say, and which of us ever have those perfect retorts? And I guess if you look at the Bible like I do, as legendary development, as a something that a story that evolves for several years before it was first written down, then what you're looking at is narrative natural selection. You're looking at the stories about Jesus that most affected people and most brought in converts. Those are the stories that were kept, and I'm very proud of that phrase that I came up with, which is narrative natural selection.
I really like that.
Yeah.
It's apt.
The idea, in case it wasn't clear, because I don't know if I explained it as well as I wanted to, but the idea being, of course, that the stories that are most effective in winning converts are the ones that work. And if you tweak it and it works slightly better, then we keep the tweak. And if that gets tweaked again, then you keep that tweak. And it's the ones. So it makes sense that over 20 years, the best versions of the Jesus stories are the ones that get written down, not the sloppy ones where he got partially owned by the Sadducees or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even with like the best of the best version that it lands on, it's still subjective whether Jesus was the perfect balance between, he had the perfect tone of what, like, I don't know.
Well, and see, I think Frank is kind of taking like all the Gospels as a whole as one cohesive picture. If you take them and separate them out, Jesus is very different from Gospel to Gospel,
Yeah,
depending on
yeah.
what the authors of the Gospel were trying to get across.
Yeah, Matthew's was very legalistic, much more so than the others.
And I mean, couldn't we all agree that if Jesus had just said at some point, "Hey, maybe don't own people,"
That could
wouldn't that have been a
would have
better
been
Jesus?
Could have been cool.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are germs and they exist.
Wash your hands,
Wash your hands.
Oh, he said the opposite, didn't he?
right?
Well, no, he says to like wash your shit, but he doesn't say it's because you're going to get sick. It's just because that's
No.
rules. Like,
He doesn't say to wash it. He also does, like a lot of people will say, he said not to wash your hands, and he didn't say that either. He just said don't be ritualistic about it, because
Yeah, it was like
it's
an
not what goes in
analogy
your mouth.
about
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
Jewish rituals, but it's funny to take out of context as don't wash your hands.
weird.
The secrets of we atheists who are taking things out of context.
Only we do that.
Only we. That's right. Only we.
Anytime there was friction, they had, the writer of Mark didn't have to come up with this whole cloth. There was oral tradition. I think you would agree that there was decades of oral tradition. You even say so in your book, that happened before that. It's not, so I'm skeptical whether Jesus actually said those retorts, whether that conversation actually happened the way it did.
Okay, well, I would ask you, why do you think he didn't say it, and who did say it?
I'm assuming that.
Go ahead, Morgan.
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, basically said, well, if Jesus didn't say it, who did? Which is not dissimilar to saying, if Emerald City doesn't exist, where does the Yellow Brick Road go? Right? Or is that another
Yeah,
analogy?
And like you, Paul are the oracle, and you must know if it wasn't Jesus. Tell us.
Oh, Frank, it's so tough.
So, well, no, if Jesus didn't say it, who did? One of the dozens to hundreds of anonymous people that got the story in between when
Right.
the original events happened and when they were written down.
No one said these things, that these were stories about Jesus that may have been inspired by an actual conversation, but over the decades, Jesus's retort got sharper and sharper, and one of his followers who came up with a better way to explain it and a better way to say it, that's the one everyone picked up on. Just like you kind of see in sermons, you kind of see when you go to as many churches as you do, I'm sure you start to hear some of the same
He looks very
phrases
glazed
used
over
in
right
sermons
now.
because those are
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I was actually trying to talk about Frank at this moment because Frank gives the exact same I don't have enough faith to be an atheist sermon, and he streams it every month or so on his channel, but it's the same sermon at every single church, and he's honed on even the timing. like how long to pause to wait for the laugh or whatever, right? And that doesn't come the first time. You learn how to say it exactly the right way.
Yeah.
The ones that work to win converts, so I guess I would need to be convinced that the stories of Jesus actually happened if I'm to, as a prerequisite before I'm going to look at the Bible and say, oh, well, he was very witty in his retort against the Sadducees. Isn't that amazing?
Right. Well, let me say that this is not my primary argument
I
that
understand.
Jesus is God. All right.
Did I just win there?
Yeah.
Yes,
looks
that
like a
was
win.
victory.
Basically, I don't even understand what history means. So
But I think anytime someone says, well, that's not my main argument.
yeah.
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 Anyway, I took that as a victory.
I'm going to look at the evidence for the resurrection. This is kind of more of a probability argument here, dealing.
He's exactly right. The probability argument is that there was no resurrection.
I don't know what he's trying to get across.
This is the part where I agreed with Frank Turek. All right.
Zamdes writes, this reminds me of the time when an ex-friend tried to convert me using the argument that the Bible is true because God said so, and God exists because the Bible says they exist.
That's right.
That is a formidable one.
It doesn't often come that explicitly, but yes, that's definitely an argument that gets made. And you can often find people citing what's his face, the guy from Answers in Genesis, the astronomy guy.
Danny Faulkner.
No,
Jason
That's not
Lyle.
Danny Faulkner.
Jason Lyle. Jason Lyle.
Jason Lyle.
They'll get Jason Lyle's thing about like, oh, this is the fallacy of pretended neutrality.
What?
Oh, you haven't heard that one? That's the one where atheists pretend that it's possible to be neutral about the question of whether or not the God of the Bible exists, when in reality, the God of the Bible just exists, and that should be our starting assumption.
Right.
With what are admittedly are subjective assessments here, okay, that we're talking about literature here. But let me just ask this. It seems to me, how does the same consistent character of Jesus come through in all four biographies?
It's not
Biographies that are written
consistent.
in different parts of the ancient world.
It's not
So Matthew,
consistent,
Mark, and
bro.
Luke,
Read it.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are in different places when they write their gospels. How does all this come through if Jesus was alleged?
Look at my face.
Wait,
Like,
who?
it's a different Bible.
Matthew, Mark, and who? Does anybody know who these people are? Paul, you were there. Who are the rest of these guys? Who are these guys in your merry band?
Just read the crucifixion story in Mark, and then read the crucifixion story in John, and then tell me those are the same guy. It's completely different. Mark, my understanding is that Mark was writing from an adoptionist perspective. His idea was that Jesus was just a normal human that was, ordained by God originally to be adopted as God's son or whatever, and that happened at the baptism where God adopted him, and that's when he started his mission. And so that's why, like in Mark's gospel, he's always suffering. He goes to Gethsemane and he struggles and he suffers and he wants to, please, Father, take this cup away from me. But then he's submissive. He's the good adopted son doing what he's told. Not your will be done, but mine. John's Jesus, on the other hand, is a completely superhero badass Jesus who nothing ever flummoxes him. He never suffers anything. When he's nailed up on the cross, he's ordering people around down there. Hey, you need to take care of my mother because I'm on a cross now. I'm done with my earthly stuff now. So you're taking care of my mother, and Mom, treat him like he's your son now. He's up there nailed to the cross giving orders, whereas the other guys are actually suffering in the other three gospels. So it's no, this is not a coherent picture.
And everybody in the chat, I have to be the person who says, if you don't believe us, just go and read it.
Yeah.
Just go and read it. Seriously, don't take our word for it. Go and read it. Go grab your Bible and go and read. See what the differences are between the crucifixion, between the resurrection, between all four New Testament gospels. Come back and then make a comment. And
as Vice said, read Mark and Luke and tell me the answer. Did Jesus suffer at any point? Yeah.
Yeah.
Godless engineer Mark has Jesus being possessed by the word of God at his baptism. So a ghost possessed him.
So him possessed him. Or how does it work?
It doesn't. The Trinity's not in the Bible. except in one manuscript edition, there was one, like, that's the only explicit mention of the Trinity anywhere. It is in one manuscript. It's not original to that manuscript. But if you talk to Frank about it, he'll tell you that the originals are the things that are inerrant. The copies that we have are not. So it's like, okay, well, then we give up the Trinity because it's not in the Bible.
Yeah. Or each writer heard different invented stories about
Well, I think you would agree that Mark is a primary source for Luke and Matthew, right?
He might be a primary source, or one.
No, he is.
He might be.
He is.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the sources. But if you look at Luke, Luke has a lot of material that is not.
What's Justin doing here?
I'm just hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
So this has been kind of trippy for me. Every time Frank says Justin, I'm just like, what is he talking to me?
Now you know how I feel about the Apostle Paul when there's response videos about me that deal with the New Testament. Yeah, I get that a lot.
Goodness.
I probably should have clarified that my name is Justin when I made that crack earlier about Justin being terrible people.
I didn't want to dox you.
about it being.
I've mentioned it. I've mentioned it here and there. Most people still don't know, but
You're one of the gospel writers. Everybody knows that.
So now everyone can search for Justin Rhino and find
Justin
out.
Rhino, Vice Rhino.
That's knowing my luck. That's probably a Pornhub channel.
Uh-oh. Nobody look at that. That was mine. That was my idea. I'm the one who gets money from that.
Matthew somehow is the only one who remembers that zombies came out of the ground. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Imagine.
All other history forgot that. It wasn't worth noting by any historian.
What was the eclipse in?
That's also Matthew 27.
That is Matthew? Okay. So, yeah, nobody knew about that either.
Found in Mark.
And some of that may be either Matthew borrowed from Luke or they both borrowed from a Q source. I mean, to say that they pulled from a consistent oral tradition. So one of the things you mentioned in your book, you mentioned Batman. So a goal of mine, and this is credit to Shannon if she's listening, and if she shouldn't because she's supposed to be having fun elsewhere. Shannon told me, like, as I actually read the book, he's like, anytime you can, bring an example in from the book, because that's gonna like trap him even further, right? It's like, well, no, you said in the book. So you heard me say a few times, like in his book, he actually acknowledges, for example, that the original Christians didn't have a New Testament to read. And I'm like, yeah. So Frank, you get it. Like, it wasn't written down for a long time. Anyway, so now I jumped off the train I was on, and I shouldn't have, but I jumped now back to the book. But it gets me to talk about Batman, so that's cool. And when he came out in Detective Comics, when he started out, Batman fired guns and used to kill people. You know, that was a thing. And then over the decades, Batman that we know and love emerged. And similar with Superman. When Superman first came out in Action Comics, he couldn't fly. He wasn't bulletproof. You know, all those things. These were characteristics that in the first couple decades of these characters' lives, the writers figured out what the audiences liked and what they didn't like. And I thought that was a great analogy for what I think happened with the Jesus stories. The Jesus stories got a couple of decades of honing, you know, amongst. Someone pointed out that I should have said fine tuning there.
While we're paused, just a sidebar, it always kind of bothered me that the line "able to leap tall buildings in a single bound" is like a holdover from older Superman before he could fly.
Right.
Because like originally he couldn't fly; he could just jump really high.
Exactly.
That's what I mean.
But was that let me ask you guys, was that an apt analogy I was giving, or was it too subtle? Or
I think this is the best one yet. 100%. Like the perfect analogy between like the people of antiquity and like us now, because we all make like what do you justify, you know, nowadays versus like you know, we all probably eat lobster or shrimp and we're wearing clothes that are made out of different materials, even though the Old Testament says this, even though Jesus said he came to uphold the law, even though Paul said that, well, you don't need to be circumcised to be a Christian. It's just, there's so many like weird contradictions that just don't make sense to me, right? And that maybe don't make sense to other people when you look at the Bible as a whole.
And as long as along the lines of what you were saying too about like people, characters, real or not, evolving over time and honing in on a certain attribute or quality or whatever. Like this is also something that we know happens with real people even in recent times. Like this Davy Crockett, this American tall tale, you know, like there's stories about him like wrestling with a bear and stuff like that. Like he was a real guy, David Crockett. And Jonathan Chapman too, like Johnny Appleseed, who another American tall tale, like planted all of the apple trees across America. Like he was a real guy, Jonathan Chapman. These are real people who have, you know, evolved into these legends, these tall tales over time. So like, yeah, that could happen to Jesus too, 2,000 years ago versus even just people from 200 years ago, you know?
So, fun fact that's completely irrelevant to anything we've been discussing. You brought up Johnny Appleseed and apple trees and stuff, so this made me think the Macintosh variety of apples, all of them are grown clonally as like cuttings from the original tree. The original tree is in Dundas, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. Ooh. And it's, I think, if I recall correctly, it's actually still alive. So, cool. Macintosh apples are Canadian.
Calm down,
computers.
All right, so
you get it. You're the best country in the world. All right, relax.
I think that's Finland, actually, right now.
There's a close second. Close second.
Carrie wants to know everyone best and worst Bible baby names, please. Thanks, love you all.
I love the name Gabriel. That's like one of my favorite names of all time.
I mean, Nimrod.
Nimrod is the go-to good one, I assume you assume?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. We'll go with that.
The better
Gomer,
one of the better ones.
Gomer was a Bible name too, right?
I feel like naming your daughter Jezebel at this point in time, you know, may or may not be a good thing.
I like Isaac Asimov's take on Jezebel.
That's exactly what I was about to say, but then you get the really fun Asimov take of Jezebel.
I'm sorry.
You stole it from my brain. Yeah.
Just cut me off next time.
And Paul is obviously pretty good.
Worst.
Yeah. 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
Do not recommend, Paul. He wasn't even an eyewitness.
I still occasionally get the joke I made a long time ago that I should call myself Saulogia.
And I mean, that's honestly great, but yeah, no, not the same ring to it, right?
No, not quite. Also, I've learned historically inaccurate, so, you know, whoops.
Oh, not that again.
Yeah, amongst his followers. And that, for me, perfectly adequately explains why you get a consistent nature, combined with what I think are clear literary dependencies. Yeah, even John, most, like Keener and others, forgive me if it's not Keener, maybe it's Allison, but, you know, John seems to have had a copy of Mark available to him, whether or not he directly used it. So, you know, for me, those literary dependencies are easily enough to... I looked it up, it was Keener, so yay. He's roughly consistent.
Well, yeah, he is consistent, but they, as I say, they're all written in different areas by different people who are writing to different audiences. You know, Matthew's writing more to the Jewish audience, as you know, whereas Luke is writing to a Roman audience. I mean, they're writing to different people, and they all seem to have a consistent character of Jesus, even though there are different stories about Jesus in those four different Gospels. And it seems to me, what's more likely, that this character Jesus actually existed and said these things, or these four different writers in different parts of the ancient world somehow came up with this same amazing character?
No, Frank, no! No! Stop!
Do we need a Frank Turek?
That's not the argument.
Immediately, and I couldn't, so...
A Frank Turek spray bottle? Is that what we need?
Right.
Yes.
Some sort of scrambling legendary
it's in
development.
The same way Matt Reeves and Tim Burton and why am I blanking on the other trilogy? Anyone remember?
Christopher Nolan?
Christopher Nolan. I forgot in the moment. I'm so embarrassed.
Gospel Rattle Nolan.
But I feel like this is a good point, right? Like, those three directors all created Batman movies that are incredibly different than each other. But Batman is essentially the same guy.
Batman is Batman,
Yeah.
Yep.
Batman's probably more consistent than Jesus.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Although the Ben Affleck Batman just shot people for no reason, apparently.
I haven't watched any of the new ones.
If he's in so Batman would never kill anyone unless he's in a plane, and then boom, apparently.
Yeah, well, that happened in the Nolan movies too. Like Batman would never kill anyone, but then he just plows through a bunch of parked cars in his Batmobile, blowing them up, not knowing if there's a kid inside them.
Has anyone seen the new one? If
Yes.
it's any good.
I have not.
It is fantastic if you want to feel depressed, which I usually do.
Oh, good. Okay, great. I have to see it then. Cool. That's all I need.
The last Batman movie I saw was Batman v Superman, and I only made it halfway through. It was just
Of like the original.
It was a trudge. It was a trudge, and I couldn't do it.
The new one is 3 hours, so it's
Right.
It's a commitment. But it is finally a detective story. Like someone who's read Batman comics since I was a tiny kid, and the title on the thing is Detective Comics.
See, I'm
Okay.
not a superhero person, but Batman is like my absolute favorite. So every characterization of Batman, I'm like, is this Batman? And
So
that's
I really enjoyed the Jessica Jones show. Is it kind of
yes.
same idea,
So
like dark tone
They-
detective work
wow.
sort of thing?
the new
but,
one
like-
is if Seven, like with Brad Pitt, and if that movie was a superhero movie, that's what it is.
Oh, no way. Oh, what a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to see it now.
Yeah, don't take a 5-year-old like there was a 5-year-old at the theater. It's
I-
just not appropriate.
I'm sure to not.
I like the joke that the what's his face that they got to play Batman because he made a name for himself in Twilight, that now he's a vampire bat.
Yeah, that's gone now. Anyone who's calling him the Twilight dude, that's mostly gone now. But yeah, I always thought of him as Cedric Diggory because I didn't
Yes.
really watch Twilight. So.
I started watching Twilight with Mrs. Rhino just like last year because like we enjoy watching bad movies, and it's like, okay, these are bad movies
They're
we've never
not
seen.
bad. Come on.
No, they were not even bad good. They were just boring.
Just bad.
It was just dull.
All right, Anton wants to know everyone's favorite Batman actor. Dallas?
As far as Batman goes, I preferred the Batman animated series. So
So
it's my favorite Batman.
what's his name?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
So that actor got to play Batman on screen during the Batgirl, the Batgirl show
Really?
that lasted for a while. They let him be actual old Batman on screen for like one episode. It was amazing. Yeah,
That
it was
is
great.
incredible.
Go find that on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
That's worth seeing. Oh, someone in the chat will remind me what his name is. Best Batman actor, Emma.
It's coming back in with the controversial opinion. I'm trying to get cancelled tonight.
Yep.
I always loved Adam West Batman the best.
That's a good
That's my
answer.
favorite.
That's
The,
a good
the
answer.
TV series with them walking sideways along the wall that's blatantly the floor and having celebrity guests pop out. I don't know. That's my favorite.
Okay, I just have to jump in for a second. There's a guy in the chat, Enigmatical Jedi, who says, "Sorry, but I don't think you know how to watch movies. Clearly, everything bores you and is bad. Sorry, dude, that just makes you a bad critic." Maybe he's late to the stream, but you guys remember earlier in the stream when I mentioned that like the main criticism I saw from Rogue One was everybody complaining about how boring it was, and I absolutely loved it. So
Well,
just putting that out there. Like, I'm not a professional critic, so I'm not saying I am a good critic. But if I'm bored with I enjoy bad movies and I enjoy good movies. If I'm bored with a movie, I'm not enjoying it.
All film is subjective. That is actually, that's one of those things that and I actually am envious of people who can enjoy a movie that I can't, because they got a better time out of life than I did. Right. So, all right, Morgan, Batman actor.
Keaton, 100%. But I do agree. There's one Christian Bale stan in the chat, and he did a good Batman, in my opinion. But it was just a good series, I think.
I think Keaton may have been the best Bruce Wayne, but he was not the best Batman. My controversial take is that I actually think that Ben Affleck, if he had been given the script of the new movie, he would have been better in that new movie than
This, literally newest one.
this newest one.
Sure. Because he was supposed to be, right?
Right. Now they changed this one so that this new movie is now only a year and a half into Batman's career, so it wouldn't have worked. But if they could have easily put it late in the career, and Ben Affleck would have been amazing, but they did. if you guys don't know all the behind the scenes terribleness of Justice League and Batman v Superman and the what we've now learned of the terrible character of most of the directors who were involved, that was just a schmaltz that was never going to work, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, DC has kind of bungled everything, unfortunately, and like I'm not a big
but
always
I'm actually okay because they got us the Joker, which was an amazing movie.
I didn't like it.
Really?
I actually really despise that movie. I don't like it at all.
See, I guess I just like to go. I like to be depressed, so that made me depressed.
I think that movie is tropey. If we're gonna talk like full on like movie criticism, I think Joker is tropey and stupid. I don't like it. Truly.
Wow, I had completely the opposite reaction.
Absolutely appreciate and understand why people like it, but I think it's awful.
All right. Well, we'll disagree. And then now I worry. No, you're gonna love the Batman. The Batman is
okay. Good,
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't mean that to like throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
I'm just
All right. The new Batman is the natural evolution of Patterson's Twilight character. Oh, that is interesting. If you going back to the other thing, if you think of the new Batman as a sequel to the Twilight series,
there we go.
That would be a fun way to watch it. Cool.
It's the Apocrypha of Twilight.
Apocrypha. All right. I'm going to let myself make this last point, and then maybe we'll see where we want to go. The Dark Knight trilogy, those directors all came up with incredibly different Batman stories. But yet the core of
right, but they're fiction,
I think the stories about Jesus are fictional. Like if you look at it that way.
Wait. So you're saying the most influential human being in history never existed?
No, I think Jesus. Did I say that Jesus didn't exist?
Nope.
Yes.
You can have legends about real people, like Jonathan Chapman.
Oh God.
So that's where he went, because of course
I don't think the story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree is
right. Exactly.
Is nonfiction, but I think George Washington was a real person.
Exactly.
It's the new apologetic thing to like, and I'm sorry for my mythicist friends. I know I have many mythicist friends who watch my channel, but it is one of the things that apologists want to throw out. If they can lump you that way, they feel like that then you become irrelevant to a bunch of their audience.
Yep.
Which was the exact. So I got a little spicy here in my defense, and I'm sorry for my mythicist friends that, and then I immediately regretted it. But it was undermining everything I was trying to do, which was show that I know the Bible, I know all this stuff. So sorry for my reaction here. Totally, I will fight anyone. I think Jesus existed, but I did not want to say that.
Where's John? Get John.
I will not fight any of my mythicist friends.
I cringed a little bit when you said that. I'm willing to say that now, but
Yeah.
it was, oh no. Man.
So for penance, I'm actually working on I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'm working on a mythicist video for my channel as penance. So
Good. Well, because I don't know. I feel like me personally, I'm like ambiguous with it. Like I got hard onto the mythicist aspect of it for a really long time, but then I'm like, yeah, I mean, if there was like enough historical evidence, like, yeah, I mean, it's already so ambiguous, right? To where, like, for me personally, I could just be like, yeah, there was a Jesus, but I mean, it wasn't like the Jesus, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's almost irrelevant in the end, because like even if there was a Jesus person, like still most of what we have in the New Testament is legends.
That's
the
kind of my
resurrection, miracles. Like, yeah, it's entirely different for sure.
That's my position, is that like I think he probably was a guy, but it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't make a difference to any of the arguments about anything. So I will just grant that he was a guy and go from there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that the stories that emerged about him in the decades later are, again, I cannot emphasize enough how much Luke and Matthew just blatantly copied Mark. Like that's, if you had a copy of Mark with you, it's very unsurprising.
Well, can we come back to this after a quick break, and we'll
Sure.
We'll see how Frank
there we go again.
responds to-
yeah,
Let me take a break.
That was a timely break.
I know. I feel like I had him on the ropes a bit. And we're gonna skip his ad.
See, I actually, going into this, didn't even know that Justin was a pro apologist. So until I like watched the ad, and I was like, oh no. I watched the whole ad, and I'm like, oh no, not courses.
What I will say about Justin, and I think we're gonna see, if I remember correctly, we're gonna see it here. he's an excellent moderator. I know he has a huge bias. Like he makes videos that I've responded to very, very pro-Christian, but I've been on his show twice now, and he demonstrates more than the guest that he's at least active listening to what I'm saying, and trying to be fair about it.
100%. That's just my like opinion of things of not.
Go ahead.
Well, and to be clear, when I'm saying that he's like these are convenient spots for him to be cutting in, he's not necessarily doing that on purpose. Like
Right.
like that could just be like it could be a completely subconscious thing where like he's not thinking about this being a good spot to cut it off, but it just like that's where he chooses to do it. I don't know.
Quick super chat from Silver Harlow. Joker was bad because the character is not supposed to have a tragic backstory or a backstory at all. Also, a mistake Burton made that Nolan did not. Oh man, I could make a whole hour video about this. No, I completely agree though. Like Joker, just like Boba Fett,
Oh yeah.
should not have a backstory. Like these are just characters that, yeah, I agree, shouldn't. I think the Joker absolutely does not work as a superhero movie at all, like on any level. But if you want to have a story, Morgan may disagree, about how basically how there are huge cracks in the system, and that people can very easily cascade, and there's no way that we're helping these humans in our current society, or in the 70s when it's portrayed for sure. Like that's what that movie's about. It is in no way like I dread the fact that they're making Joker 2, because I think now they're going to try. Let's have a really messed up Riddler or something, right?
Yikes!
Oh crap!
I think I just looked at it as that for me, the epitome of Joker is the Killing Joke graphic novel.
Yes,
and that the movie was not that, and that made me angry. I think because to me, and it sounds tropey, and like maybe people will disagree, but the Killing Joke is perfect.
Yes,
I think the story of it is perfect. The characterization of the Joker is perfect. And I am not like the superhero person. Like my old boss is like a super insane like Marvel comic book fan. He was like, the Killing Joke is like okay, and I'm like, what? The Killing Joke is perfect. Like characterizing like who the Joker is, how he became who he was in a way that was relatable, into making him a villain, which is all superheroes are about, or should be about, or villains, right? Like in that same context.
So, Paul, you brought up Boba Fett.
Yep.
So to derail a little bit, one of the things that I know we both agree on this, that would have made that series a lot better would be if he just kept his damn helmet on. But I feel like there might have been some behind the scenes stuff going on there where like the actor, if I recall correctly, most of his scenes in the prequel trilogies, it was not him, it was CG. So I could see there being a thing where he would have been like, okay, I'll do it, but only if I actually get FaceTime on the camera, because that's a big deal for actors.
So I'll correct and not correct a little bit. So Tamora Morrison, who played the clones, played the old clones. There's a different actor whose name is blanking who played the younger clones, and of course Daniel Logan played the young Boba Fett. Hi Daniel, if you're watching, good cool guy. Love you. And I wish Daniel was involved with the Boba Fett stuff. Tamora Morrison is of Mara descent, and I know he had a lot of input on this Boba Fett, basically having the same kind of spirituality that the Maori people from New Zealand have, and so that's actually why a lot of the Tusken Raiders, for example, tend to have like those same kind of moves, and some of that kind of stuff is from that. I think they're also trying to differentiate from Mandalorian, where Pedro Pascal never took the helmet off. I think they're trying to make it seem a little different. But to correct what you're saying, so every clone trooper in episode 2 and 3 is CG. There is no one ever wore a clone trooper costume, and it actually became a problem between episodes 2 and 3. The 501st Legion, shout out to anyone who's in the 501st. That's the fan troops that dress up in stormtrooper costumes. Discovered that the design that they made for the clone troopers literally could not be worn by a human. There was different cuts and things, and in the helmet that literally a human couldn't even where. So Tem didn't have a problem with how he was done. Like for Tem, the character he thought he was playing was Django, right? So he loved playing Django, and the rest of it was mostly voice work.
Yeah.
So he didn't have any. He had no bitterness about.
Okay.
About it, and I actually, I at the time I knew him, so I feel comfortable saying these kind of things. We had chats, so, and I also now feel like I'm saying weird braggy things. Damn it! I'm sorry. That's not what I meant, though. It's not.
Paul once had lunch with Christopher Lee.
I did.
Paul once had lunch with George Lucas.
Probably more than once for that one.
Yeah, I had my hands down George Lucas's shirt is often a thing I give in parties.
Don't have me go to bed with that thought in my mind.
There's going to be some weird fan fiction coming out of this.
That's right. That's right.
It was lapel mic related. All right.
Some really interesting ways in which Frank draws out parallels between these Hollywood heroes, the Star Wars films and so on, and the stories of the Gospels. In conversation today with Frank has been ex-Christian Paul Enns, who runs the Paulogia YouTube channel, who has his own, background in comics and movies and the Star Wars films. So it's been a really interesting conversation as we've gone between talking about the movies to the Gospels and philosophical issues around determinism and morality. We've gone the whole gamut on today's show. But we are kind of in the middle of talking through sort of the question of whether, yes, the character of Jesus is essentially a fictionalized, coned, cleaned up character. Paul's been making the analogy with some of the movies, where we've seen the evolution of characters like Batman and Superman in different ways. And he says, well, couldn't it be the same with Jesus? Yes, maybe there was an original person, but the stories kind of changed shape, developed into this perfect, the person that you say, this is the reason why we can trust.
Is this where you were saying that you could tell that he was actually listening?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to play this, because I felt like he actually summarized my position even better than I was communicating it. So I now see that we are 14 minutes away from being on for 3 hours, and I do not want to go past that. So I think that is a perfect place for me to stop. Also, I think that if anyone is interested in what I did in the third quarter, in the third the third of the show with Frank, you can go watch it. We get more into basically the reliability of the gospel stuff, which I know Frank is rarely challenged on. I know at one point Frank actually compliments me and basically says, I never get to have conversations like this, who long form conversations with people who have an opposite viewpoint from me. And I'm like, well, you could.
I can tell.
Instead of going from church to church and giving the same sermon every time, maybe you could actually, if you're going to say I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, maybe talk to one sometimes. So I think everyone on the panel would probably be Frank if you wanted to invite them to have a conversation. I'm sure anyone on the panel would be happy to talk to you. And actually, you could talk to someone more than your Q&A session where there's clearly a power dynamic difference between you and the person you're willing to give a 3-minute answer to. And there's my rant, and I jumped to a super chat. So future debates, $5 for every time they get the name Paulogia wrong. Here's my $5.
Paulogia.
Paulogia.
Yeah.
Paulogia. That's my favorite. like panel, what's your favorite
mispronunciation?
I feel like this should be an easy one because they're in the subject, they're in the field of apologetics, and that it's clearly a play on that. You just take the A off and it's apologetics, Paulogia.
Apologetics.
So
that's so good. That sounds great.
The one thing that's a little bit weird is that it's from the Greek apologia or apologia, and people basically don't know how to pronounce words in ancient Greek. Like we don't have anyone around to tell us how they were pronounced. So when I went to Bible college, it was apologia. That's probably why I say it the way I did. But there's Apologia Ministries, and they say apologia. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. It's
all Greek to me.
All Greek to me. Thank you. You're the one that's thinking. You're still fresh-minded.
Apologia.
All right. So in the last 10 minutes, I want everyone to talk about where they can find you And if you haven't already, told us why you're cool and what people can see if they look for your channel and things like that. And let's start with Emma, because you are the trooper. I did not expect you to stay this long, so I thank you.
Neither did I.
I can't wait till one day you're a cartoon. That will happen.
I hope so.
But let's tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, if you just type Emma Thorne into YouTube, you'll get me. And I am a generalist. I make content mostly at the moment about atheism, but also you can get some stuff on feminism and stuff like that. And I'm Emma the Goblin on Twitter if you want to see me get into slightly spicy rants with not very intelligent people. And thank you, Captain Cadaver, for shouting out my gaming channel, which nobody watches, but it is fun. I have to also, while I've got the platform, I have to retcon my earlier statements on Star Wars, and I have to say that actually Rogue One is the best because my partner worked on it. So
nice.
I'd like to officially change my story.
Very nice. Vice Rhino.
Yeah, so I am Vice Rhino on YouTube, at Vice Rhino on Twitter. I have a Facebook page that I think gets automatically posted to with stuff, but I haven't logged into Facebook in months, so I don't know. Links.vicerhino.com is a good place to go. And actually, I do a Tweets stream on Wednesdays at 8:30 usually, where I go over some recent atheism-related news stuff. It's usually atheist-related. And then I end it with reading some tweets sent by some twits. Frank is usually a regular occurrence on this show. And actually, on the 14th, April 14th, I'm moving my tweets to the Thursday so that I can accommodate someone from the UK who may also be on this panel here with us tonight. So
that's amazing.
Who could it be?
Who could it be? Yeah.
Frank is particularly terrible at Twitter. I don't know what it is.
I imagine that he has an intern that does that for him. But like he needs to like sit that person down and have a chat
Just like
with them.
Ted Cruz, right?
Yeah.
The intern. Like
That was 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago. It's like 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah, that sounds correct.
Or maybe it was in COVID and it just feels like 5 years ago. I don't know. If
Right. This is the whole Jesus mythicism story. Like going, maybe that was 10 years ago. Maybe that was. Nobody knows.
Right, Dallas. Tell everyone how cool you are.
I don't know about cool, but I do have a channel. It's just Dallas Wade. You can find me on YouTube. I have a Twitter. I think it's at the Dallas Wade. Not sure, but yeah, I'm kind of a generalist. Like Paul was saying, I cover a little bit of everything, and it's all coming from a very fundamentalist, conservative Christian background, mostly young Earth creationist. And I still live in Alabama, the heart of the Bible Belt, and so everybody around me is still that way. So that's usually what I'm addressing is young Earth creationist type fundamentalist Christians. And I like spending a little bit too much time editing my videos and polishing them up and hoping they look decent. And if anybody wants to check them out, I would really appreciate it. My last video, I kind of parodied Paul and Vice Rhino a little bit, and that was a lot of fun.
That was good. I saw the FBI warning come up and like, oh hey, someone else uses the same one that I do. It was like
literally.
Oh hey, he's doing my thing.
So
that was supposed to be an April Fool's video, but that took me a little bit too long to get done. So.
It was still excellent.
And yeah, what I would say is like, I don't care if you're interested in Dallas or not. Go watch that last video because it is incredible.
So you liked the cartoon, Paul?
I liked the attention to detail and how like you had to learn like 5 different styles.
Yeah.
And do all of them like really well. And so just like the technical craft you put into that video was amazing. I think you picked a little bit of low-hanging fruit with some of your TikTok, but that's fine because
it was
for him to get.
I was focusing on I want to parody some.
Well, no, so it was perfect for that. It was super perfect for that because all I want to say is if you watch that video, don't think that that's Dallas's normal level of analysis. His normal level of analysis is also excellent, and go watch some of those. But the technical achievement, I would say, of the new one was fun. I do have, you didn't quite get my mouth puppetry
No.
exactly the way I
Okay,
do it.
so that I didn't want to spend too much more time on it. I was trying to figure out how your mouth animation is synced to the audio clearly, right? That's not keyframed, is it?
Trace.
Keyframe assistant and
I can't tell you, on stream. We can talk about it off stream.
Okay,
You
we
just
should
signed
talk
an
about
NDA, Dallas. I've already
right.
done this, or else I would.
I signed no such thing. It's the keyframe assistant.
It
it. Okay.
yeah.
Did I just
And-
spoil some magic?
No, I don't. I've told lots of people that it's essentially a script that if you look up like how to do graphic equalizers in After Effects,
Yeah.
that's essentially all my mouth is a graphic equalizer.
I knew that it must be connected to that somehow, but I didn't look into that much further.
Well, you did an amazing job because you had all those other styles to copy and do well. So anyway, that's enough gushing. Also, Weist does amazing work. Emma does amazing work. I'm not pointing at the right places, but
Well, you
'cause I
kind
feel
of
like
are.
I
If
feel like
it's
I gushed
Pac-Man,
on-
if it's Pac-Man rules, you're over there.
right.
Like go this way.
Emma has really made Kent Hovind mad. So if you're a fan of my channel and you like when I make Kent Hovind mad, nothing I've done has been anywhere close to how mad he is at Emma. So that would
You're
be
not a
another
woman,
reason.
so
Yeah, that's fair.
I have an advantage.
Amen. Amen.
All right, and Morgan, who as of yet doesn't have her own channel, but tell us where people can find you. Oh yes, you do, and you do
But,
cool
like,
toy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing important. And maybe one day I'll be converted to, doing more content based on this sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm mostly active on Twitter at Indigo Gentleman. Go ahead and follow me. I talk about like car stuff, video games, Magic the Gathering, atheist stuff. Like I have a ton of different like wild interests, and like I just tweet about all of it and have like really silly memes a lot of the time. I'm active on Facebook a lot, mainly Facebook and Twitter. Don't really have a lot of video content, but you can still subscribe to my YouTube channel. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure you can find it.
I'll
I
have
have
to put,
like 99 subscribers. I don't know how. I'm assuming it's Paul's fault, but like is it like because my YouTube channel is like my oldest Google username, which I think is just Morgan P. Sanchez. I don't know.
Well, there will be links in the description. They are not there now, but by the time if you're watching this on replay, they will be there for sure. All right. Anything left for the good of the order? All right. Go watch if you didn't get enough for some reason. Go watch everyone else's channel, and then you can go to Unbelievable and watch the actual hour 15 of my discussion with Frank Turek that we covered like 20% of.
I'm surprised it's that much, to be honest.
Yeah, we did all right.
Damn.
All right. Maybe this will be the last super chat. Those avatars that Paulogia and Vice Rhino are currently using must be hard to rig. So lifelike, yes.
I don't know how they do it.
That is very impressive. Yeah.
It's
Well,
a
to borrow a
common
turn of phrase from Frank, I'm just a moist meat puppet.
So moist. So meaty.
I also am working really hard, as you guys know on my live. People who are watching know on my live channel that I'm working very hard to be lifelike and actually pass a Turing test. So hopefully I do that for everybody.
Paul is not real. Spoilers.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and enjoy life. And I'll talk to you next time. Later.
Have a good night, y'all.